There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey, you guys. It's Wednesday evening. If you hear a sound in the background, it's the ceiling fan. Tom thought it was too hot in here, so we had to turn the ceiling fan.
Yeah, it's too hot.
So if you see like weird dust blowing around and stuff, it's not ghosts.
Yeah.
Zach Baggins is like, oh, there's fucking orbs. No, it's just dust. Sorry, Pookie's over there like playing with one of her mouses and she's like rolling around. She's fucking funny. All right, so what are we doing today? We're doing our regular show.
I'm gonna wear my Mexican shirt that Murder Hornet sent to me as a gift. I was gonna wear it today, but I forgot I had to send it to the laundry to get shrunk. Maybe I'll wear that in the weekend. We'll see.
Okay, well you can wear it Friday.
Yeah, maybe I'll wear it Friday.
Gramthor's Hammer said whose voices are on the intro. I'm not sure actually. I just found them somewhere. Yeah. Like on one of those
it's a pay thing.
Free.
Oh,
no, well,
free?
Yeah, they were like one of those free sound effect sites or something, and it's just like I kept scrolling through until I found somebody saying words that I wanted, and then I just edited them together.
Yeah, it's all layered in, made out of a bunch of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much how I did it.
Yeah.
I just
haven't made a new one in a long time. They're almost kind of out of style. People are like, man, I'm not gonna waste your time with them intros and outros. Either that or saying that because they can't make them. But I have to admit, like all the shows that I watch, I skip all the intros and outros of my favorite YouTubers.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I fucking skip them. But I don't know.
I'm not that impatient.
What's that?
I'm not that impatient.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty impatient, but I'm not that impatient.
Yeah.
It doesn't really bother me, honestly. I like I said, I watch ones that have intros and don't have intros.
We've had the same ones for 2 years. It might be.
Well, I thought about doing another one, but it's just like I just haven't had time to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's like it takes a while to do.
Yeah.
So I just haven't had time to do it, and it seemed like kind of low priority. But I'll get around to it eventually. Probably. I was gonna do it for the new year, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah, man, closing this house, it's just draining the money away. $600 on sprinklers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to I'm gonna get the homeowners to pay for that though during the damn closing costs. That shouldn't be on us.
Yeah, I mean that was not working.
Yeah.
And they
tearing me
and
up.
They paid for like a new dishwasher and stuff because
I'm fixing their shit because
I
don't own a place yet.
Right. So I kind of feel like that's
coming
legit.
Out of closing costs. Yeah.
They have $600. I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and the sprinklers do need to get fixed. All our grass is gonna die.
Yeah, it's fixed.
So there you go. And then we were like thinking about painting the outside. I found the thing with the paint colors, like the ones you can use and stuff. There is a homeowners association. It turns out.
This has an acre of land, and I think it's an acre out back. So it might be 2 acres. I think that's an acre over there. And according to Florida law, that means I can shoot here. If I have a backstop.
We're only on 3/4 of an acre.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's 3/4 of an acre.
Is it? Okay, damn, I thought that was an acre.
Nope, it's 3/4 of an acre. That's what it says on Zillow.
That's what it says on Zillow?
Yep.
I thought it was an acre.
3/4.
Because I'm looking at it and it looked like an acre.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Something interesting too, when I was looking at all the paint colors, they have approved combos, obviously, but between the house and the trim. You also can't have the same color house as either side neighbors or the house across the street.
Yeah.
Because they want them all to look diversified.
Yep.
Granther said, what's the monthly HOA fee?
Only $100.
It's $100. Yeah.
And the internet comes with it.
Yeah, so it's actually like kind of worth it.
Yep.
So it's not really that bad.
You need to move down here, Gramps. You'd like it here.
Yeah, I mean certain
it.
sections of it are okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not a fan of the heat.
That's the only thing about it. That heat keeps the weaklings out, though. Keeps all them Yankees up north.
I'm not a Yankee, and I still don't like the heat.
We'll take Gramps, though. He can come.
DJ Maniac says just paint it all black. I was like, you know what? I'd like to, but we're not allowed to. Honestly, most of the approved colors Because we like been walking around the neighborhood, and I was like, oh, that's kind of nice, or that's kind of nice. I like kind of like the dark gray colors with like the lighter trim.
That would kill us on his 2-story house, though.
But honestly, I was like looking up the approved colors, which I think are Sherwin-Williams, by the way. And the only one that I thought was like okay of the ones that you could have was Mothwing. That was the name of it. It was kind of like a dark, almost kind of like browny stone kind of color. And you could then have that, and then you could have kind of like an off-white trim that was kind of nice, like a sort of grayish trim.
It's got approved colors. The closest thing to all black is they have a gray one.
Yeah, like a dark gray.
But it looks good. There's a couple houses that are like that. The problem is this is a 2-story house, and it will cook you. And you'll be spending all kinds of money on air conditioning in the summer. It's just, it's rough.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I don't really like the color it is now. I'm trying to figure out which color, because I was looking at all the colors. It's kind of like a whitish, like an off-white, but then the trim is also kind of white, so it just looks like this big...
Yeah, it's got to be ridiculous.
It needs, like, contrasting colors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to look better, because it just looks like a big white box.
It needs to have, like a chocolate brown.
Well, that's kind of what that Mothwing color is, but it's not quite brown. It's kind of like a warmish gray, but it's pretty dark. That's a little trending toward brown. You know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And you can have that with like a kind of an off-white trim, and that seemed like it looked pretty nice. I don't like any of that yellow shit.
Nah.
Because there's like a lot of the houses in here that that are more like they're Mediterranean looking, so they're kind of like that goldenrod kind of color, which looks okay on some of the houses, but I'm not a fan of like yellowish.
There's actually the house is a mix. The houses are a mix. There's southern kind of English colonial houses. There's one expensive one that's all brick that's like that. The rest of them are kind of like Baroque, kind of Spanish. And other ones are modern, but they're definitely out of the same catalog. These houses all came out of the exact same catalog, and the original people that moved in here ordered them at how they wanted them, depending on what they want. They're different prices. They look good. They're just, you can tell they're out of catalog.
Well, every neighborhood is like that,
Yeah,
because that's what they do. They sell a lot, and then they have like this big thing, and they're like, we have X amount of floor plans. They usually have a name,
and it's a special company that's approved to come in here and build.
And then you pay extras if you want. I'm pretty sure they do that everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I used to do ads for.
It's got a nice big lake. You can get in it. They had a girl kayaking. They allow you to fish in it. I haven't fished in it yet. Some of the deluxe houses, they're backed up against that lake. And they have their own little landings with the boats and shit.
Yeah.
This is not one of the deluxe ones. This is one of the low-end 2-story houses, which puts it in the fucking middle range. Because there's a lot of single-story houses in here. They look nice, but they're not. They're half the price of this house.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go half the price, but they're
half the price. Because this is $475,000. Those are $200,000, maybe $30,000 house. $250,000 maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
they're not very
square
big.
footage.
They're not big. A lot of them. There's different ones, but the ones I'm talking about, I don't think you've seen them yet. They're down that other street. You know when you first come in and turn left?
Yeah.
That block is all the little houses.
Yeah, we drove down there like a couple of times. I think when we were
like
just kind of
they're like half the size of the house that we moved out of.
Yeah. Okay.
They're smaller than that.
I mean, the house we moved out of wasn't that small.
No, it wasn't small, but they're half that size, probably.
Yeah.
So that's small.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like the smaller ones are kind of like along the front, like toward the.
Yeah.
Because you're getting, Well, I was gonna say you get traffic noise because that's where the main road is, but you're not gonna get much traffic noise because there's not much traffic on that road.
No.
That's just I can't remember what county road that is, but yeah. So they're talking about different building codes and stuff like that, attic fans, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll show you the list of all the colors. They have a little matrix of like a big list of colors you can paint your house, and then there's like a little matrix you go across, and it matches up like what trim you can use. You know what I mean? But like I said, you can't do it the same color as the houses on either side of you or the house across the street from you.
This didn't have attic fans. We all have ceiling fans here. There aren't any attics, really.
We do have kind of like an attic space, but it's not like an attic.
You can't go in it.
You can't really go in there.
There's
you can
no
like
floor.
Right.
It's just insulation.
And it was just, that's
Raptor.
kind of like our old house was like that too. There was like a little thing in the ceiling in the garage, and you could kind of go up in there, but it wasn't really. We had
I
some
put
shit.
boards there.
Yeah,
so I
we
could
had
put
some shit
containers.
stored in there,
Yeah.
but it was like pretty small. That's like where the Christmas tree was and all
Yeah.
that kind of shit.
Yeah, I put boards in there and would climb up in there, and that's where I had a lot of Christmas tree stuff.
Yeah, and this one has. We didn't actually think this had an attic. That's the entrance is right here in this closet, like in my
Yeah.
dressing room. And we thought you couldn't go up there, but
Yeah,
you
inspector
can.
went up
The
in
inspector went up in there, and we were like, "Well, I'll be damned."
I know. I went up in there. You can stand up in it.
Really?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can stand up in it.
So it's kind of like the old house then.
Yeah, a little bit higher.
Huh.
The ceiling's a little bit higher. It's pretty big. I was like, damn. I can store in there.
Okay.
You can store in there.
You just have to put,
getting in and out of it's a bitch. It doesn't have its own staircase to get into it.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it doesn't
put a
even have
ladder.
like a fold down ladder. Like
Right.
our old house had the fold down ladder. This
Yeah,
one doesn't
right.
even have that. You have to
like
get your own ladder,
It
go
wasn't
in the
even
closet.
a ladder. It was a staircase.
Yeah.
It was a staircase on the back of that door. Remember?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't a ladder. A ladder is different. It has steps. It was a staircase.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a ladder that was like slanted like a staircase.
Yeah, but it had. It was ladder has rungs. You grab onto with your hands. You
Well,
could
yeah.
not grab onto it with your hands.
Yeah, I'm
It
just
was-
saying it seemed more like, but it was
a foldable-
ladder like.
It was a foldable staircase,
Yeah.
not a ladder.
This one does
Yeah.
not have that. So you have to take your own ladder into the closet and climb up in there, which I'm not going to be doing anytime soon. That's for sure. Camp Guy said my house now has a big whole house fan that sucks air down the main hallway and out the top of the hallway into the attic and out of the house. Yeah, I think a lot of houses have that. Gramther's Hammer said house inspectors have a sweet gig, $500 for a couple hours
Yes,
of work.
they do. Yes,
Yeah.
they do. I observed that. Come in and expect. Although our guy was good, he gave us some ammunition. You know, let us, something to negotiate with, and then.
Yeah, he was in here was 3 hours. He was here
Yeah.
3 hours, I think.
And then reassured me that some of the stuff that I was seeing was not structural. You know, the house needs a little bit of work, but I'm not worried about it. Just over time, we'll be able to take care of it. We're gonna start off with landscape.
I mean, being house inspector, I think to do that, what do you need to do? Like take a course or something? Because you do have to
Yeah.
know a little bit about
Yeah.
like electrical shit and plumbing and stuff like that. But I don't think you have to be an expert, but you just have to know when there's something the matter.
Yeah.
So you do have to have a good general knowledge of construction and stuff. I'm sure that would help. But yeah, I mean, other than that, yeah, they just kind of like crawl around in your shit. They were crawling around under the sink and up in the attic and everything. And, you know, it was $500, right?
Yeah.
He was here for 3 hours. So,
How long have we been talking?
18 minutes.
Okay,
Well,
almost 20 minutes.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, not really because we were on. So it's more like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Because we had the thing on. Sheila Ann said, I imagine attics in Florida would be intolerable.
Oh, they're
Yeah, I kind of feel like we don't really have basements either. I've seen houses with basements, older ones, but the basements are usually like half underground and half above. Like I lived in a house like my grandfather's old house, which has since been torn down, which I think was built in the early 20th century, had a basement, but it was like half above ground and half underground, and it was like kind of small. It wasn't like a big huge, because I know up north they have like this big huge basements that a lot of people like finish them out like to make rec rooms and stuff. People don't really do that here so much. Honestly, the water table in Florida, you're just like asking for trouble. If you have a basement, it's gonna flood at some point, unless you're like way up on a hill or something, which you don't really get a lot. So
Houses don't have them here.
they don't. Yeah,
No.
like I said, I've seen ones with them, but it's very uncommon. It's very uncommon. And if they do have them, they're not that far underground
Some of
because
these
it would flood.
Some of these ultra modern mansions might have kind of subterranean floors, but they're on a hill usually.
Yeah.
And then there's like a deck that comes out. There might be swimming pools back there, and then half of it's in a damn hill, and it goes up another 2 or 3 stories sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen
Different
stuff like that.
Yeah, they have all kinds of ultra modern shit here.
But I mean, because honestly, most of Florida, we have like little hills and shit, but most of Florida is at sea level.
Yeah.
So you dig down a few feet and there's water. So, like I said, you're kind of like asking for it.
You go out here. You go out here in the back of this reserve. You hit the edge of it and look out. It's just cow pastures. It looks like something out of down Wyoming, kind of cow pastures and
Yeah, it's
pine
crazy
trees.
looking.
It's a lot of empty. It looks like you're out in the middle of nowhere, but you can't go very far in a single direction before you hit a road or a town. But the density here is not very dense, you know. And there's still a lot of natureza. I don't know how you say natureza in fucking English. Natureza, wildlife, natural scenery, I guess. It's like you're in the country. You're not really, though.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more of an illusion.
Well, yeah, and when we started like walking around the neighborhood like a few days ago, and it's just funny how this neighborhood, like, which is pretty big, and it butts up against, yeah, like it looks like fucking Kansas. It's
like
not,
Kansas.
yeah, it's just like this big,
Open
huge,
fucking
open like cattle
ranch.
thing, cattle ranch.
Yeah, there's cows out there and shit.
And I was like, huh. Like right across the street from some of the houses in the neighborhood, and then there's like a big fucking expanse of cattle.
It looks like you can shoot around here. I want to shoot. I hear people shooting.
I hear people shooting.
I don't know where they're going, but I got shit. I got a zero.
Well, ask around.
I got a zero some shit.
Ask some of the neighbors, because I hear people shooting around here. I don't know where it's at, but, you know, it's, you know.
I inherited an old High Point carbine. Remember the old High Point carbines, Grafthers? I'm fucking gonna turn that shit into something that's actually makes sense. I got rid of a lot of bullshit on there. It's just gonna have a red dot sight and be real sleek. No mechanical sights on it. Just fucking trimmed down. Threw all those fucking stupid ass rails off the fucking thing. It's just gonna be super trimmed down and minimalist, kind of like the first one. It's about halfway there. Looks good, but I gotta get. It came with Weaver rails, and I gotta get fucking what's in Weaver? Shit, Weavers were the old ones. The new rails are fucking you know what I'm talking about. The new rail system. I forgot what it's called. Go ahead.
Grampers Hammer said, my basement is a man cave, bar, and prepper room.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, no need for me too.
Yeah.
Saying my 69 Mustang is coming along beautifully. Gonna try and send stuff off next week to you guys. Thank you very much. Happy New Year's to chat. Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. In case we haven't wished you guys Happy New Year yet, we have done a couple shows since then, but this is kind of like the main show since then. And, you know, yeah, Camp Guy's saying we have to keep dehumidifiers in our basement in the summer. It feels cooler than air conditioning. Yeah, I kind of feel, well, that's sort of why we run the air all the time. Although it doesn't run as much here as it did at the old house. The old house, it pretty much ran, like, all the
Picatinny,
but here it doesn't as
that's
much.
what it's called. Picatinny rails. I gotta swap that out to get a Picatinny on there so I could put it down. I got red dots everywhere, old ones. I'm gonna put an old red dot on there. It doesn't have shake awakes, so I got some of those that don't have shake awake that I gotta put on there because you can't run those on ARs anymore. I got.
My phone's
Oh,
ringing.
your phone. Okay. Now that ghostly ass music was coming. I thought.
Well, yeah, that's what it's
They were
called.
coming to get me.
I downloaded an app that has like all kind of like horror like and scary music like for ringtones and stuff. Because I'm weird like that. But that's the ringtone. It's like I don't know why I bothered because nobody calls me, and when they do I don't answer it. So
Whoever lived here before was at one time or another was a reloader or maybe no, not a reloader but a shooter. Because inside all the flower beds, and not only is there mulch in there, dude threw his brass in there. There's thousands and thousands of rounds of 9mm and 5.56 brass in there. And all you gotta do is fucking get it and tumble it. And you can reload it, which I'm thinking about doing. There's a lot of 38 special there. And some of the shit's nickel.
Camp Guy says, cheap fun hobby, bought 4 or 5 nice bird feeders and mounted outside of my window, $200 plus feed to put inside them. I've thought about doing that for like hummingbirds, or you know what I've always wanted to do? Build a bat box.
Yeah.
I want to like build a little box for like for some bats to live in, so they eat all the mosquitoes.
You feed birds here, you can't get rid of them.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe it was like
try to get in a damn house.
bats would probably be better, to be honest. Although, because at least they eat bug. Well, I guess birds do too. You know, we used to see hummingbirds sometimes around our old house, just around some of the plants in the front.
I don't know why they put the brass in the flower boxes, but I got to get in there. I'm going to get it all out. Somebody who didn't reload. Doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah.
I would have sold that. There's all kinds of guys that would buy it. Maybe it was done at a time where they didn't do it. But it's all black, but you could tumble it. Tumbling, it's not a big deal.
All right. So, are you ready to
Yep.
get the topic started or no?
Yeah.
Now, this is funny because before he started the show, and Tom's like, "What's the show about again?"
Yeah.
And I said it's about the Lindbergh kidnapping. Oh yeah, I know about that. And then he proceeds to talk about this case that I have no fucking idea what it is. I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But okay, I don't even know what you were talking about.
Another case where these two like gay guys in their teens and early 20s captured some little kid, and then they held him for ransom, but it didn't work out, and the older one killed the kid, and the younger one got blamed for it. I don't know if that was in the United States, though. And that was around that time, early 1900s, maybe 20s, 30s. That's the way I remembered it.
Well, that's a completely different case than what we're talking about today.
I don't remember what case that was.
I don't either. It sounds kind of familiar, but I don't really, like, offhand, I don't really know what you're talking about. So I'd have to look it up. But, I mean, ransom kidnappings, I feel like, and I was watching something earlier, ransom kidnappings are pretty much, I don't know if I'd say non-existent, but they're very, very rare nowadays. Yeah. Mostly kidnappings nowadays, that's mostly, the overwhelming number are one parent kidnapping the kid, like in custody disputes, as that's the overwhelming number. And then you get ones that are like, obviously pedos. That's the second category. But, ransom, not so much. You don't really see it.
Too complicated.
You don't really see it that much anymore.
Too complicated, it can go too wrong. It costs a lot of money. It takes too much time. It's just, there's other ways to steal money. It's just not popular. Now they'll do it in Central and South America, but they don't do it. They don't do it up here. That's a retro fucking.
Yeah, it seemed like it happened a lot, like back in the day, but you don't really see it anymore. Not in the United States or Europe, as far as I'm aware. Like I said, I'm sure it's not non-existent, but it just doesn't. Like you said, there's other ways of. Making a lot of money in a short, like if you're going to go the illegal route,
you go another route because
it would be much easier.
Most states have a fucking life sentence for kidnapping. So why the hell would you want to kidnap?
Actually, this case was the one that brought in like all those, they call it Lindbergh law. That's what it's called. That made kidnapping essentially a federal offense, which it wasn't prior to this. But this is the case that
And
that
why
made
would you
it.
want to go through all that problem when you can do a note job on a bank, and then you're facing federal time, which would be a lot sweeter than state time. And as long as it's a note job, it's not really armed robbery. So most they'll give you 10 years probably. Yeah. But a first offender, they might only give you 5, and then by the time you felt guilty and everything, that's 2 or 3 years into it. So you only do another 2 years, and then you're out. So really, the risk versus reward is a big factor in why certain crimes are popular. Like it's ridiculous, man. In Brazil, in parts of Central and South America, they still have fucking old-fashioned crimes that nobody worries about here. Like over there, they'll carjack a car to steal it and then resell it. Man, you can't make any money fucking selling stolen cars in the United States.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's sort of like gone down the. I mean, like I said, I'm sure it happens, but I feel like most people, if they're going to steal a car, they steal it in service of like another crime that they're committing.
They use it as a getaway vehicle.
Right.
And then they fucking burn that car.
And then burn it, right.
In Brazil, they're so poor. Oh my God, we've stolen a car. I'll sell you this car for fucking $5,000. And then they try to give like a fake license plates or something, And that's just like that's people who are desperate for cars. All right.
Well, yeah,
and that's the way it is.
I mean, the same thing is like when people would break into your house and like steal TVs and VCRs and shit back in the old days.
You can't even on a TV.
Yeah, like nowadays everybody's like, who the fuck wants that? Nobody. Yeah. I kind of feel like the only people doing that are maybe like really desperate, like drug addicts that like need a little bit of money for drugs.
The only reason why they'd ever steal a car in the United States would be some popular tuner car like a Honda, like one of these Honda Civics. And they're going to steal this Honda Civic because it's modified, and they take it to a chop shop, and they take all the fucking turbochargers and all the accessories and everything that dude put on there, and certain parts that are worth a lot of money, and they'll sell those, fucking secondhand or over the internet. They don't want the car. They want the parts off the car.
Yeah, that's what Grand Theft Hammer was just saying.
Yeah.
Detroit has 20 carjackings a day. Some get torched, some get stripped for parts,
Yeah, parts.
Yeah, you're not really reselling the whole entire car, no.
In Brazil, they'll try to resell the whole fucking car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like it's a cultural difference. It's a cultural
thing.
High Desert 004 says the case you were talking about is Leopold and Loeb. Okay. Which was a very famous case. We should actually do a show about that one of these
days. See, she thinks I'm crazy. Thank you for backing.
No, I didn't say you were crazy. I just said I know that's a real case. I just couldn't think of what it was. Yeah. But I said it doesn't have anything to do with this one.
I think it was in the 20s, wasn't it? I think it was.
You said 20s or 30s. I actually can't remember when that was. Right. Weren't they? I thought they were brothers. Were they not?
I thought they were.
I can't remember. It's been a long time. Also, and I'm going to get into this, but I like that you brought this up. So High Desert also says, have you heard the theory that the Lindberghs did away with their kid themselves because the kid was disabled and Lindbergh was into those Nazi eugenics theories? Yes, I have heard that theory, and I am going to get into that as well.
Graham, who's in case you guys are new to the show, he's he's a retired policeman that I went to school with. We grew up together. He's saying what they want is they just want the rims, the airbags, and the catalytic converters. Thank you. That's right. The cats are worth money because you got to pass fucking emissions, and they don't want to pay retail. And the fucking airbags, they want those, and rims, aftermarket or stock or aftermarket, it doesn't matter. They want those rims. The rest of the car, they'll just fucking throw it away or torch it. They just don't give a shit. It's
not worth anything.
It's not worth it to them. Yeah.
It's just, for some reason I was thinking of like those people that
cash.
Well, for some reason I was thinking of like those people that go into like buildings that are about to be torn down and to like strip out all the copper, and because that's like the only thing that's worth anything.
Yeah.
Like that's left in there.
If you stripped a fucking Honda Civic and only took those parts off of it, and if a Brazilian fucking car thief saw that, they'd have a fucking heart attack. They'd want every bit of that damn car. Every bit of it.
But like I said, it's a cultural difference too. I mean, obviously it's like a much bigger deal.
Well, I think they're more poor. They're a lot poor, and they're scrimping for more money.
I mean, here like consumer goods are just
they're so
cheap.
Cheap, yeah.
That
they pay 100% import tax in Brazil.
Yeah.
100% import tax. So everything's twice the price, because the Brazilian government's job is to steal. Basically, it doesn't produce anything. It just steals. Totally illegitimate.
High Desert says, anyone try to steal a Tesla yet? Oh, I'm sure. I haven't heard about it, but I'm sure somebody has. Although, I always thought it would be really dumb to steal a car that was kind of rare or high,
No, they steal those.
No, I'm just saying, I'm saying here. I'm not saying there.
No, they steal them here. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Teslas, they steal all that. The thing is that they're not resold in the United States. They're smuggled away. They're put up. They're hidden, and they're put on ships, and they're sent to the Middle East, where they're sold fucking used in places like Dubai and Saudi Arabia.
Well, that makes sense.
But only luxury cars.
Well, like I said, that makes sense, and for that you would need like a big a criminal conglomerate.
It's a whole operation. And
I'm just talking about like just regular ass cars.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Nobody's doing that.
In
kind
that
of shit.
particular gig. In that gig right there, Middle Eastern governments are involved. They know all about it. They facilitate it because they want those cars. They don't care that they were stolen from other countries. They don't give a shit. They probably feel like they're insured. Yeah, fuck it, they're insured. We want that brand new Lambo. We want it here for half the price.
And if you can afford a Lambo, you can afford to buy another Lambo. I mean, to be fair, so that's probably how they justify it.
Yep.
And honestly, if somebody can afford a Lambo, I'm not going to feel too bad if it gets stolen. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I don't feel that
they're
bad.
insured.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And evidently that operation involves trucks. They put it into a truck and hide it and drive it, that kind of thing. Fucking helicopters and ships and fucking, import agencies and stuff that have been bribed to get that thing through inspections. And they'll hide it inside fucking grain containers and shit. And in there will be stolen fucking high-end cars, bound for some Saudi Arabian prince.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, probably not some prince because he can afford a new one. It's
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Some like second or third rate Saudi Arabian rich guy.
Some kind of like upwardly mobile. That wants to show off, but he can't quite afford it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So he has to get a little bit of a knockoff, kind of. Well, not a knockoff, but one that's like a little bit cheaper.
Discount.
Yeah, because like you said, some fucking big ass like billionaire. He'll just get new ones. He's like, I got a whole garage full of new ones.
Yeah.
I don't need like some criminal conglomerate overseas to like bring me. Right.
Yeah.
Slasher Fred says, if you guys ever watch Murder on the Orient Express, the motive for the murder, which is the kidnapping and murder of the young infant, is an homage to the Lindbergh kidnapping. This was, I kind of feel like the Lindbergh kidnapping was a fucking media circus. It was just like all over the fucking world. I mean, this is the 1930s. They were calling it the crime of the century, the trial of the century. It was like a huge fucking deal. And I think that it was like, this was probably the biggest deal, as in everybody following like every fucking, you know, minutia of the case, probably up until the JFK assassination. I can't think of anything in the interim that was quite as big as this. I mean, this was a massive fucking deal, because you have to think like Charles Lindbergh, he was world famous. I mean, he was like probably, arguably, easily one of the most famous Americans at the time. And he was known worldwide. So the fact that his kid got kidnapped was a massive, massive deal. So, you know, as I said, even back then, you can like look up the newspapers from back then. Crime of the century. It's like this big, huge fucking thing. I mean, you know, it's like, it's a really sad case, but as I said, we'll kind of get into what happened, and then we'll get into some of the alternative theories. We'll call it that. And this one, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about. I mean, I have the way that I'm leaning toward this. Some of the kind of like weird. None of the theories in this are crazy. You know what I'm saying? They're all like plausible, but I still have like one particular way that I'm leaning. And I watched a few other documentaries about this. There was one on PBS. It was on Nova. There was there's been a couple of others. One on the History Channel. There was like some other ones. And most of the like experts and stuff kind of were leaning the same way I was leaning. So I was like, okay, well that makes me feel better. But as I said, this one doesn't have like any of these like wacky conspiracy theories type things. Like, oh, it was aliens, or it was the Illuminati, or it's nothing like that. Pretty much every theory about it is somewhat plausible. So, all right. So, you ready to get into it?
Go ahead and go.
Now, when I start talking about this, maybe you'll remember it.
Okay.
But we should do Leopold and Loeb though. Write that down, because I think
I remember that case.
Well, somebody recommended that to me, and I said, "Oh, that's a good idea." And I think I put it in the poll one time, but it didn't win. But I'm always looking for more stuff to put in the poll, because I'm running out of topics. I mean, I'm sure I'm not running out of topics, but it's just
illusion. There's so much.
There's so much shit to talk about, but I can't think of it like when I'm trying to do the fucking polls, and I'm just kind of like, well, and I try to like mix up, let's do like supernatural, or let's do true crime, let's do this, that, and the other thing. I'm actually surprised. I put this in the poll like several times and it hasn't won, but it won this time. So I've been wanting to do this one for a while. I knew about it, but I didn't know like all the particulars. So I've actually had a good time like over the past 2 or 3 days, like reading a bunch of stuff about this, watching a bunch of documentaries about it, looking at other people's like takes on it and stuff like that. It's really interesting. So Charles Lindbergh, in case you're not from the United States, or you're really young and you don't know who this dude was, massive, massive celebrity back in the 1920s. Now in 1927, Charles Lindbergh was the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean without making a stop. He flew from New York to Paris. So back in those days, in the early days of aviation, that was like a massive deal, and everybody was like hanging on every single like thing that he did. Just the same thing when like Amelia Earhart got really famous. All these kind of like aviators got really famous, and he was one of them. He had like there were songs written about him. He had like all kind of, it was just like a big huge thing. Now, when his kid was taken, this was early 1930s. Now he became, let's call this a little bit of a controversial figure later on, which one of y'all in the chat like brought up a little bit, but which I'll get into because it does actually factor into one of the theories about the crime. But you know, still when the crime happened, it was only like a few years after his like historic flight, so everyone was still kind of like Is there a male equivalent of America's Sweetheart? There's not, is there?
Male equivalent of America's Sweetheart.
I don't know why I just thought of that. But it's just like, I thought he was America's Sweetheart. I'm like, well, I mean, I guess Sweetheart isn't really gendered, but that's usually...
Justin Bieber.
That's usually used to refer to like a girl or a woman, like Shirley Temple or something. So it's like, I'm not really sure if Charles Lindbergh never struck me as a sweetheart type of guy. He seemed like, I don't know. He seemed like kind of, I didn't know.
He was an aviator, right?
Yeah.
That Charles Lindbergh, yeah.
Yeah, he flew across the Atlantic. First person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean.
Some people say also a Nazi.
That's what I was going to get into.
Yeah.
I've read some of his views about race and eugenics and stuff like that. He kind of does sound like a Nazi.
Yeah.
And honestly, after the kidnapping and after all the publicity around the crime, like him and his wife like went to Europe and kind of like cozied up a little bit with the, so.
Oh, yeah.
Also kind of friends with Henry Ford, who was very big anti-Semite. So you had a lot of that kind of stuff going on.
That was a universal thing, though, back in those days.
It was. Well, not really, because he kind of got called out for it at the time, too.
Yeah, not everybody liked it. It's just that shit was fucking widespread.
A lot of people were doing it.
Yeah.
Not excusing it. A lot of people were doing it.
No,
but
it's just the way the world was back then. Fucking, even in Japan, you know what I mean? I guess you could say cultural and racial supremacy was a thing, pretty much for everybody, in general.
Yeah. It was definitely an idea that was.
That was an idea. It wasn't
sure.
like just a white boy thing. Fucking all the other races were kind of thinking along those same lines too, because they were they were interpreting the writings of Darwin in a way that they wanted to interpret it.
Yeah.
Well, we got this shit done. That's because we got selected. We were selected for survival by nature.
So we're obviously better. And Lindbergh kind of had that, like I said, from some stuff that I've read that he's said and like written and stuff, he definitely did seem like, because I feel like this is kind of a lot of people that are into like Nazi shit or like eugenic shit. It's always kind of like, well, obviously I am a part of the superior race. I don't know about you motherfuckers. You know what I mean? And he definitely did have a little bit of that, attitude.
The thing is, though, is that they always want to interpret history the way they want to interpret it.
Well,
usually they kind of have an erroneous interpretation of what happened in the past.
Yes.
Like it didn't quite go. Like, for instance, the whole idea of the Indian genocide was a white supremacy idea. The Indians are gone because we're better than them. We won. It's not how that happened. Okay, a lot of it had to do with integration too, and also just waves and waves of fucking immigration from Europe. Just just overwhelmed them just in numbers, and then situation changed.
Well, there was a lot of factors.
Too many factors happened. Industrial Revolution had a lot to do with it.
Hardly anything on that grand of a scale is one reason.
No, yeah.
It's always a bunch of interlocking reasons.
And then there was pandemic also.
Sure.
Fucking Indians died from pandemic in the 1500s, which reduced the numbers. So it's always more than one thing. So the selection isn't always just based upon you and what you do. The selection is also just based upon things that are far outside the control of people.
Yeah, because well, and that's another thing too, is that humans tend to like overstate their own importance.
Yeah,
it's like most shit that happens is out of an individual's control.
Yeah, the dinosaurs were selected for extinction. That has nothing to do with the dinosaurs. It had a lot to do with fucking meteor impacts.
Well, yeah.
Okay, and climate change over time.
And if we had been around back then, we would have just been standing there going, "Well, shit, we're dead." It would have been the same thing.
Even though there's this idea that the dinosaurs all died at once. The impact happened. A lot of them survived. They died slowly over a period of about 1 million years.
Yeah, they didn't all die right away.
Right. It's a slow process. You don't notice it when you're there.
Well, it's easy to look back, and I would just, before we get too much into this, thank you, Aaron. For the super chat. Can't stay long, but I like saving you both to keep me sane during the workday. Oh, that's right. Just wanted to stop in and say Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well, and thank you very much. But yeah, so like everything else, everything's very complicated, and particularly when you look back at history, it's very easy because human lifespans are relatively short. So when you look back and like think of like all this stuff that happened over this period of time, like you said, like the dinosaurs, it'll be non-controversial because we're not talking about humans. We're talking about like the dinosaurs dying. Yeah. It's almost like the way it's portrayed, not if you take an actual science class, but when the way it's portrayed is like, oh, the meteor hit the Earth and then the dinosaurs died. It's like, yeah, but it took a really long time.
Millions.
I mean, obviously, and not everything died because we're still here.
Yeah.
Because we evolved from what was left over back then, like all the little bitty, little mousy creatures that were running underneath the dinosaurs' feet. So in a lot of ways, that meteor was kind of the only reason that we're here, because we would not have evolved alongside dinosaurs.
Right.
Because they were like the apex predators.
Yeah.
So it's, but yeah, it took a really long time. It's, you know, obviously a lot of animals were killed in the impact.
Right.
But
it was more like the repercussions.
It was more like the repercussions of the impact.
And it took a long, long
Sure.
time. That's it. The same kind of things happen with humans. So, the problem with the Nazis' concept of eugenics, and then not just the Nazis, other people were also guilty of the same assumption, is they always thought that their success right now was because of them and what had happened like kind of recently. Most of the reasons why they were successful didn't have a whole lot to do with their genome.
with them specifically.
It had to do with like other factors that they didn't control.
Right.
A lot of it is just geography. Where
Big time.
Where you are on the planet at any given time, at any stage of societal development.
Well,
If you look right now, because of the internet, a world culture is kind of forming. Everyone is catching up with each other. The disparities between continents is kind of slowly eroding. And it's because of the free trade of information. So that's a new factor that has never been thought of before.
So we don't really know what the impact, the long-term impact is going to be.
Right,
I don't think anyone can predict that.
You can't predict anything.
It's too complex.
Too complicated.
For our pitiful little brains.
And yeah, people are being selected for extinction, but it's individual people. If you're an asshole, you get killed because the cops kill you, or you go to prison and you can't have enough children. Over time, that has an effect. Everyone everywhere is slowly kind of becoming the same because systems are doing their job. That's a good way to put it. So the differences aren't so much racial. They're more just kind of like the difference are more, I don't want to say systemic. That can be, the differences are what do you call it? Not even cultural. Institutional. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Certain places didn't have institutions. You know, like police or law enforcement.
And the thing about it, too, is just kind of like, that's kind of like... And that's kind of goes back to what we talk about, like, for example, when we talk about serial killers, where we're talking about, it's environment, it's genetics and stuff like that. And some of it might very well be environment because, honestly, if you grew up in a family that lived on some land that was, like, fucking polluted, like, with some industrial runoff, and then you had parents that didn't give a shit about sending you to school and you all this other stuff, it's like, it would be much harder for you to overcome all of that. Especially because there are a lot of other people who didn't have to overcome all of that, so they started much further along than you did. So it's not impossible, but it's like much more difficult.
We talked about it before. A lot of this weird shit that serial killers were doing in the 70s, it's not as common as it used to be. But a lot of it was happening during the 70s, and it was happening in places that were collapsing metropolitan areas, cities that were collapsing because the economy wasn't there. Also, there was a leaded gasoline, which I think was a factor.
Yeah, and I said, you're not the only person that said that. I've seen that in other things too, and I definitely think, I don't think that's the only factor, but I think that's probably a significant factor.
Some people go like, well, why would a collapsing city have anything to do with serial killing? Because you can get away with it there. Yeah. You can get away with it there. There isn't any...
There's an environmental factor. We talked about that when we were talking about that Canadian city, like those 3 cities where all those serial killers were operating. Southern California. It just has to do not only with... genetic factors for the individual, which I'm sure is a factor also, but it also has to do with environmental factors. If you're a serial killer, if you have that proclivity, you're going to go somewhere where you think you're going to get away with it for as long a period as possible, even if you're not really thinking of it.
Or you will rise up out of the morass.
Yeah.
Because your existence is allowed. If the same dude is in a more developed area, he's caught early, so he never
becomes a serial killer because they catch him after he's...
They catch him setting little kittens on fire and shit.
Yeah.
And shit like that. Right.
Which is good. You better not fucking set kittens on fire.
Don't fuck with the cats.
Don't fuck with cats. I'm just saying right now. I'm gonna be you're gonna make me really mad.
Grandpa's will tell you, man, I lived in Detroit also for fucking a year and a half, and he was a cop in that area. Weird shit what happened in Detroit, that could only happen in Detroit. It's probably better now because Detroit is mostly gone. I was there before they tore most of it down. It was like something out of a damn post-apocalyptic movie. It was amazing. I was on Second and West Hancock, right off from fucking Cass Corridor. I had a lot of fun there, but I stayed out of trouble. But man, it was like I said, post-apocalyptic. You come out of the damn apartments, fucking in the morning, wake up, and there'd be some black dude's fucking feet coming up out of a fucking dumpster. It's frozen, it's rock solid, because they fucking killed him and threw him in a damn dumpster, and it was just like normal. It was fucking just feet and shit with shoes on it. Yeah, it was fucking bizarre. But abandoned skyscrapers. It had badass golf clubs though. It was right out of The Crow, and that's when you watch the movie The Crow, Crow 1. That's exactly what they're talking about. Grampers will tell you. He's in their comment section. It was fucking bizarre. But maybe that's why I grew up so fucking weird. I don't know. Just Brazil and Detroit and all these places. But
Gramter's Hammer said, I was a canoe guide in Canada at a Jewish summer camp in my college days. The camp was started in the 1930s as a safe haven for Jewish kids because anti-Semitism was so prevalent in the cities. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. And then No Need for Me Too said they had camps of Asians in the Hemet area of Southern California where they lived completely isolated, doing their own thing. Teenagers, not me, would sometimes harass them. Yeah, that's another thing. And interestingly, I didn't find out about the American Japanese internment camps until later. They did not teach me that in school. So I found out about it later, and I was just like, what else are they not telling me? But so we got off on a whole like eugenics thing. Yeah. But so Charles Lindbergh, even though this was like before that, because 1927 he did his historic flight. 1932 his kid was kidnapped. Kind of like, but some of his later writings were questionable. Let's call it that. And even at the time, people were saying that he was a Nazi sympathizer. So I'm not gonna like take a stand on that either way. I'm just saying some of the shit that he said.
Well, they weren't taboo during that time. They weren't taboo until after the war, until they found those camps. Until they were like, let's not do that. I mean, old Mustache Man was Man of the Year, fucking Time magazine.
Yeah, I remember.
Was it 39?
Before he did that shit.
There wasn't much reason for the National Socialists to stick out. People just thought it was just another form of European government that you could do. And boy, he seemed like he was doing the right thing, Mustache Man. And then the war broke out, Pearl Harbor and the war, and then later on the camps, and then people realized that happened. Like, and what's funny is that people did not believe that happened for a long time.
I can totally see that, because like something like that would just be that's so beyond the pale.
Yeah.
That you just don't believe that like people are capable of that, but they absolutely are.
And still to this day, people think that governments fucking love you and that they're trying to protect you. No.
I don't think anybody thinks that anymore.
Well, they got people that think that. They got people that think governments don't work for you. They work for the rich people that own them. They don't give a shit about you. All right.
Well, yeah, like that's I said, the problem. Everybody knows that. Everybody here knows that. Everybody knows that. Gramter's Hammer said Detroit still produces a serial killer or two a year. They prey on prostitutes but get caught after one or two victims thanks to DNA. Okay. Honestly, DNA is probably like the best thing to happen. I feel like a lot of serial killers that maybe would have gone on to become horrible serial killers get caught almost immediately because of DNA. So I'm not mad at it. Not at all. So this is 1932, March 1st. So Charles Lindbergh and his wife and their baby son, who I believe was 18 months old at the time, so a toddler, they were staying at their mansion in Hopewell in New Jersey. Now, their mansion was kind of like, it was sort of like this big isolated, I've seen pictures of it, like from the air and stuff. And it was this really big house that they lived in. It was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. They had like, I want to say it was 65 acres. It was a big piece of property. Now the house was mostly done, but it wasn't quite done. Like it was still under construction, right? So the family would only stay there on the weekends, and then the rest of the time they stayed with, I think it was Charles Lindbergh's parents or his wife's parents. I can't remember, but they stayed with like one of their sets of parents. Now on this particular time though, they were staying at the house over the weekend had been there. They'd stay there over the weekend, but they stayed there extra time, which they never did, because the baby, Charles Lindbergh Jr., was sick, like he had a cold. So they didn't really want to move him, I guess, or whatever. So they stayed in the house, past the weekend. So this was actually like a Tuesday night. So the baby has been put up to bed by the nanny or whoever. And, because they had a staff. They didn't have a huge staff. There was just kind of like, I think there was 3. There was like a maid, like a grounds guy or butler or something. And then there was like a nanny person. I think that was all that was in there. And so they put the baby to bed about 9 p.m. or like a little bit before that. And then Charles Lindbergh and his wife were just downstairs chilling, apparently. Now, at some time around 10 p.m., the kid's nurse, nanny, whatever, goes into the nursery and sees that the nursery window is open and that the baby is gone. So she obviously calls the parents. And they all rush up there. They find a badly spelled ransom note laying on the windowsill. The note says, let me see if I can do this. Dear sir, have $50,000, and this is in 1932 money, so that's like a shit ton. Now, 50,000, it's, you know how in the United States you put the dollar sign before the amount? This has 50,000 and then the dollar sign. So that'll be important. Have $50,000 ready, R-E-D-Y. 25,000 in $20 bills, 15,000 in $10 bills, and 10,000 in $5 bills. After 2 to 4 days, we'll inform you were to deliver the money with a big M. Yeah, M-O-N-Y. M-O-N-Y.
M-O-N-Y.
Yeah, they forgot the E.
All right.
We warn you for making any ding public or for notify the police with an S. The child is in gut care, G-U-T. Okay. Indication for all letters are signature. It's supposed to be signature, but they spelled it like S-I-N-G nature. And 3 holds. That's what the letter said. And it's kind of like sloppy ass looking handwriting, gotta say. Now, there were signs of forced entry. There was a broken ladder outside of the window, so obviously the person had climbed up to the second floor window and climbed in there with a ladder. And there were some footprints on the ground underneath the nursery window. However, the nursery itself had been completely wiped clean of fingerprints. Even fingerprints that should have been there, such as the parents and the nanny and stuff, were not there. So it had obviously been wiped clean. So, so obviously the parents flip out, and interestingly, when they start going into this investigation, as I said, Charles Lindbergh, probably one of the most famous Americans in the world at the time, and the fact that his baby son has been taken out of his fucking crib in this house is a massive deal. So the media descends. Now, interestingly, Charles Lindbergh had enough money and influence to essentially, I don't know if I want to say he took over the investigation, but it does seem like a lot of cops and, of the authorities and stuff had so much respect for him that they kind of let him insert himself into the investigation in a way that probably most of us motherfuckers would not be allowed to do. Let's put it that way. It was
another era.
It was.
Yeah.
And, like I said, everybody, and it's crazy, how much deference they gave to him. You know what I mean? Whereas nowadays, I kind of feel like, might
that would only happen in a very small town today here in the United States.
Yeah, I feel like back then, everybody we don't give a shit, how famous you are. If you did the shit, you're in trouble anyway. But, yeah, he was pretty much allowed to run the shit, from pretty much from the outset. So, as I said, this was a media circus, and much like some of the crimes that I talked about, in some of my books, before they really understood, and this is the 1930s, this isn't 19th century, but the forensic science wasn't really, on the vanguard or anything like that, so they didn't really have too much problem with press or investigators or something like that just coming into the crime scene and looking at shit and touching shit and whatever, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like that happened in the Velisca case too, where it's hey, a whole family got axe murdered, all the neighbors are ooh, let's go see, and then they're running through the house and shit and nobody stopped them. So I kind of feel like that happened a little bit in this situation as well. So obviously, the next day, the FBI became involved. And J. Edgar Hoover got in on it. He was fairly young at this time. So he basically says, all right, we're going to give the New Jersey State Police our, aid in the investigation. But as I said, Charles Lindbergh was like pretty much running the show. Now, one thing that Charles Lindbergh did, and this is not, I don't know if this is necessarily proven or it was just something people were talking about, because Lindbergh, like a lot of kind of maybe wealthy, influential people at the time, maybe allegedly had some mob associates. So they're thinking maybe that's why he wanted to get involved in the investigation, because he's like, man, I'm going to sort this out my own way. I don't know. I'm speculating, but they think maybe that's why he was wanting to get involved so much, because he was like, I'm going to get some of my mob people to go sort this shit out. So, there was that whole issue as well. Because they did kind of think, too, that maybe the kid had been taken as some kind of, like, mob extortion type of shit, too. So maybe he was thinking that he had some associates that, knew some shit about the mob, so maybe he could, like, negotiate. I don't know. So he was kind of doing that. Now, he also had this friend who was a school principal in the Bronx. His name was Dr. John Condon. And John Condon, he also decided he was going to get involved in the investigation. And I've seen, like, some newsreel footage of him. I saw this one documentary. I think it was the PBS Nova one. And one of the people on there was saying that Condon was, like, really a blowhard. That's the word that he used. He said he was a blowhard. And so then they showed, like, some archival footage of him talking about how he was going to, like, sort out this fucking shit and everything. And I was like, yeah, I totally get that. Because he came across as, like, he was, like, an older dude. He was retired. And he came across as very, very self-important and just kind of, like, this theatrical, we're going to figure out how we're going to do it, blah, blah, blah. So it was that kind of thing. Now,
I think that was the default setting for old guys back then, though.
Maybe. It's just
like
I'm fucking important. God damn it.
Kind of like in Korea when I was down there.
Respect me.
Every old man over the age of 65 walked around with his hands behind his back, leaning forward, walking around like he was a damn general. Walking around like that, inspecting shit.
Yeah. They really,
yeah.
They were really kind of self-important.
Yeah, all 5'1" of the motherfucker.
They were all very self-important.
Yeah.
They all needed their little bubbles burst.
Yeah.
I feel like need to be taken
they
down
told
a few
them that
notches.
they told them that once they got to a certain age that they would run everything.
Yeah, you're gonna run everything. Everyone has to listen to you and defer to you and stuff. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Sorry.
That's where Kentucky Colonels and Crackers came from. Like Colonel Sanders. I'm at a certain age now. I'm gonna wear a white suit and tell y'all what to do. Hold on, let me cut the ribbon. Okay, there. I'm commemorating the building of a new place. There you go. Give me some my tea.
That's kind of like I don't know why.
Check?
I don't know why, but that just reminded me of Ray Milland's character in Frogs.
Yeah.
Remember that dude where they had like the house and he was just like telling his whole family, he was like his grown ass children, like what to do, and I'm just like, bitch, you're in a wheelchair. I'm gonna push you into the lake. You shut up. You don't tell me what to do. I'm a fucking adult.
Old school fucking Kentucky Colonel Cracker fucking mentality.
Yeah. I get to tell everybody else what to do. I know everything.
No, it makes sense. In Afghanistan, they'd call them... You're laughing. In Afghanistan, they'd call him a tribal elder. That's what they would call him. That's all it was, a tribal elder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Camp Guy says, sounds like that movie Raising Arizona kidnapping scene. Nicolas Cage says, I think I got the best one. I love that fucking movie. I really do. I think I got the best one. Yeah, so, all right. So, like I said, he kind of took over. So, J. Edgar Hoover, who was, like I said, very young at the time, so he's, like, offers the FBI, their help in the issue. Now, the ransom note that was left at the house, like, in the window, that wasn't the first one, because obviously that didn't have any, particulars for where to leave the money or anything like that. So, Charles Lindbergh keeps getting, like, other ransom notes from the kidnapper or kidnappers, which, like I said, we'll get into that in a little bit. 5 days after the baby was taken, there was another letter came to him. It was mailed from Brooklyn. And this one, initially they asked for $50,000, which I'm not sure. How much is $50,000 in 1932 money? I think it was like at least $500,000, maybe more, maybe 600,000. I'm just, blue sky, and I'm not really sure. But so this second letter was like, oh, never mind. Now we want $70,000. And it also said, we don't want you to use any intermediaries. It's just going to be, me and you, Lindbergh, we're going to sort this out. However, Dr. Condon, the blowhard, let's call him that. I'm sure he was a nice man. I don't know. He's dead now. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, from the footage that I saw of him, I was like, oh, yeah, he does seem like kind of like a blowhard. But, yeah, so he says, he wants to be the intermediary. So for whatever reason, I'm not sure why. All of the shit that I read and like saw about this, no one can entirely tell me why this Dr. John Condon person, like, I think he was friends with Lindbergh, but why he wanted to get so involved with the case.
He was a tribal elder, I'm telling you.
I guess.
Yeah.
Like, why he volunteered to be an intermediary, why he thought of getting involved. Like, he didn't really have anything to do with anything.
What state is this again?
New Jersey.
Okay.
Well, New Jersey and New York, because
Okay.
Dr. Condon was from the Bronx, I think.
All right.
But
she's a tribal elder.
he was kidnapped from the baby was kidnapped from New Jersey,
Yeah.
like Hopewell, New Jersey. So Dr. Condon says, well, I want to be the intermediary, though. So what they did was they gave maybe this is why. So they gave him a code name, Dr. Condon.
Yeah.
Jafsey, which is
What?
It's because John F. Condon, it was JFC, Jafsey, so that's what they called him. So that was his code name. So they did like some fucking cloak and dagger shit where he would publish ads in the paper, like classified ads, like talking to the kidnappers with the code names and shit. So maybe he was just like, he was like a spy fantasy. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm impugning the guy's name. I'm not really sure. I'm just saying that I was never really clear on why him in particular thought that he should be involved in the case, but involved he completely was. So he takes out an ad in the paper, the Bronx Home News, and he says, after the second letter came that said we don't want any intermediaries, he said, I'll give you guys an extra $1,000 if you guys use me as a go-between. Okay? So, like I said, maybe it was like some spy fantasy he was living out. I'm not entirely sure. Now, interestingly, the kidnappers, or kidnappers, seemed okay with this. So they were just kind of like, sure. So they sent another letter and they said, yeah, that's fine. We can deal with him. And, so Condon kept sending them messages through the newspaper, like through newspaper classified ads. I'm like, oh my God, it's like Desperately Seeking Susan. I don't know why I thought of that, but that's what it reminded me of, like all these code names and shit. Now, at this point, like, so the ransom letters keep coming like back and forth. It's almost kind of like this wild goose chase they were sending them on, like the family. What they would do is they would send one note or send like a coded message or something and then tell them like where to find another note. And so all this other stuff. And then finally the family's like, well, how, can you prove to us that you have the kid for Christ's sake and you're not just like dicking around? And at this point they sent, the baby who they called Charlie, actually, was Charles Lindbergh Jr. But the baby had, when he was taken, he had this little sleeping suit on. It was like little feety pajamas, essentially. And so the kidnappers sent them that. Now, they had been washed and everything, but they sent that and they said, and like the nanny like identified, yeah, that's what he was wearing when he was taken. So they knew that they did actually have the baby, or had the baby at some point. So after that point, Condon goes to meet one of the kidnappers in this cemetery in Upper Manhattan. Now, he meets this guy, and at first, it's kind of like, okay, so he meets this guy who they call, I think the investigators ended up calling him Cemetery John. Now, Condon didn't get a super good look at him as far as I could determine. I think he had kind of like a handkerchief that he held over his face. He did say that he had kind of like a German accent. So there was that. So they had some like letter exchanges. Then they find the 12th ransom note. There was a lot of ransom notes, like I said. And at this point, they had this is fucked up. They had negotiated the ransom down to $50,000 again, which was the original price. Like I said, they had tried to like inflate it up to $70,000, but they talked him back down to $50,000. So, So at this point, they've figured it out. Condon has met with this person in the cemetery that he kind of saw, but not really, because his face was sort of partially concealed, but he said he had a German accent. So they get the price down to $50,000, and at this point, Condon is the one to hand over the cash to the kidnapper, at which point the kidnapper says, okay, the baby is on a boat called the Nelly, right off of Martha's Vineyard, right? So everybody's like, okay, fine. The ransom's been paid. Let's go get the baby. So they go to look for this boat, and this boat, not surprisingly, is not there. No boat, no baby. Now, sadly, May the 12th, which was about a month after them not finding the boat, and 72 days after the baby was taken, they found the baby's decomposed body.
Damn.
Accidentally, like it was just like a couple hunters or some shit like that, and they'd gone like to take a leak in the woods or something, and they ended up finding this kid. Sadly, the baby's body was found 4.5 miles from the Hopewell mansion where the kid had been taken from, and a post-mortem determined that the kid had probably died the same night that he was taken. So the kid had probably been dead this whole time. That the kidnappers
out of a damn murder
were investigating. I mean, if you think about it, and I know this is going to sound fucked up, if you think about it from a practical criminal point of view, kidnapping a baby for ransom is, I mean, you're a kidnapper, you're not a babysitter.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but most of the time I kind of feel like if they take a baby, they're probably going to kill the baby like immediately because they don't want to like deal with it.
typically.
I mean, I feel like that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
And then they'll just try to like string the parents along until they can actually get the money, and then they'll fucking disappear, which just seemed like what they were trying to do here.
You can't take care of a fucking baby.
That's what I'm
They're
saying.
criminals.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I kind of feel like that was for sure what they were trying to do here, because they knew the baby was dead the whole time. I mean, the baby was found, as I said, less than 5 miles from the house where it had been taken. It looked like the baby had been like killed with a blow to the head. The quote from the time, the New Jersey State Police Chief, who, fun fact, was Colonel H. Norman Schwarzkopf, the dad of the Gulf War Norman Schwarzkopf. So,
Wow, okay.
yeah, it was that guy. So it was his dad. So he was the New Jersey State Police Chief at the time that this investigation was going
Green
on.
Spark says something that's right. If you're demented enough to steal a child, guarantee you can't handle taking care of one. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So I kind of feel like in these situations, I don't think they had any intention of keeping the baby or giving the baby back. I mean, from a practical standpoint, it would be much better to take the baby, string the parents, just kill the baby immediately, and then string the parents along and hopefully get the money.
Actually, you got to look at it this way. From a practical point of view, it would be better to actually take the baby and keep the baby alive and take care of it. That way, if you got caught, you wouldn't be accused of murder. It would
That's one way of looking at it,
It
yeah.
was just, you know what I mean, as an insurance policy.
Sure.
And that way, you could give it back. But no, if you're crazy enough to fucking steal a baby and hold it for ransom, you're too crazy to take care of one. You're going to kill it.
Yeah.
It's exactly what's going on.
So, yeah, so the baby had been killed with a blow to the head. Now, what Schwarzkopf, the New Jersey State Police Chief, said at the time, and this is a quote, "It was as if some adult person had held the baby tightly in his arms and deliberately hammered the head with the purpose of causing instant death."
Yeah.
That was the quote. Now, let's see. He also said, although it was possible that the abduction and murder were spite work, it seemed more likely that the kidnappers, observing from this lookout point that the alarm was spreading from the Lindbergh home, became frightened, killed their small prisoner, and fled. That was also in the newspaper reports at the time. So, as I said, like, J. Edgar Hoover was involved in this. The president got involved, who was Franklin Roosevelt at the time. And just fucking tips poured in. You got like your hundreds and hundreds of cranks saying, I took the baby. It's, you know, so like everyone's really super helpful in cases like these. Now, one thing that was kind of not related at the time, but ended up being really helpful in catching the person that did it, or one of the people that did it, I'll get into that in a little bit. President Roosevelt had taken the U.S. off the gold standard in the summer of 1933. Now, because of that, there had been like, you know, it's sort of like currency, but it was like a gold certificate that was kind of like this, you know, certificate entitles blah, blah, blah to so much gold. You could like spend it like cash sort of, or you could like cash it in for cash is what you could do. Now, so Franklin Roosevelt was taking the U.S. off of that. So he had issued an executive order that recalled all the gold coins in circulation and the certificates worth more than $100. Now, the fact that they did this, and that I'm not really sure if it was foresight on the part of, you know, of Lindbergh and the people that were paying the ransom money, but they paid a portion of the ransom money in gold certificates. And obviously, as you would do in any ransom situation, they took note of all of the serial numbers on the gold certificates. Okay, so that was a very important thing. So because that had happened, you know, all the serial numbers were accounted for so that when the gold certificates were like cashed in to the federal government, you know, they could keep track of how many of them were still in circulation. So in the summer of 1934, because everybody in the area, like in New York and New Jersey and everything like that, like all the kind of shopkeepers had been given a little brochure that had all of the serial numbers of the gold certificates that had been used to pay the ransom. So they all had that and said, hey, be on the lookout for these serial numbers. So summer of 1934, somebody spent 16 of these gold certificates in Manhattan in the Upper East Side. And this is interesting because this particular neighborhood, not anymore, but back in the old days, this was a lot of German immigrants lived in this area. And as I said...
some of the spellings were German.
Yeah, well, and even from the beginning, like before, like when they had experts look at the ransom notes, which had all been written more or less by the same person, they said this is probably a German speaker who has limited English.
Yeah.
Because of the way things were misspelled, the thing like some nouns were capitalized, which they do in German, but they don't do in English. Like shit like that. It was like little details like that. So they presumed they were looking for a German immigrant that didn't speak that much English. And as I said, Dr. Blowhard, Dr. Blowhard.
Dr. Blofeld.
He had, yeah, Dr. That's what we'll call him, Dr. Blofeld. He had said that the guy that he was talking to, quote unquote, Cemetery John, the guy he met up with a couple of times, he said that he had a German accent. So they were like thinking that this is like a German guy. So there was like a big German enclave in Manhattan's Upper East Side at the time, so they thought that was like a good sign. Now, interestingly, one of the certificates that they found that was turned in by, I believe it was a gas station attendant. And they said somebody came in here and spent this. It was a $10 gold certificate. And because the attendant had noticed that it was weird, because it's like not a lot of people were spending gold certificates anymore, and because the Lindbergh kidnapping had been so prevalent in the media, so the guy thought that the dude spending it was like a little sketchy, so he wrote down his license plate number. So the cops looked into this license plate number, and that traced them right back to a dude named Bruno Richard Hauptmann, who was a German immigrant, and he was a carpenter, actually. Now, so they picked this guy up pretty much right away. Now, they asked him, where did you get these particular gold certificates? He said, oh, I got them from a dead friend of mine, which that's almost kind of like when they find drugs in your car. They're like, they're not mine. I'm holding them for a friend. It's that kind of like lame excuse. So they're like, okay. So they arrested him. Now, when they went through his house, they found a shit ton more of the gold certificates. I believe it was $14,000 in gold certificates in his garage. And they also found Dr. Condon's address and phone number penciled on a wall, like in the closet, like he'd been on the phone and had written it on there. So they asked Hauptmann, why do you have Dr. Condon, who was the intermediary, why do you have his phone number and shit like written on your wall? That seems a little strange. And he said, oh, well, I guess I was just like really into the case and I just wrote it down because I thought I might need to know it. It's like he came up with like some really like lame excuse. And everybody's like, yeah, we're not buying that either. Now, so another thing too, when they searched his house, was that, you know, the ladder that they found at the scene, which was broken, by the way. The ladder was kind of like, I saw like a documentary that had a thing of it. I don't know if it's the actual ladder, but it was like a, you know, a replica of it. And they said, so it looked like somebody with like some decent carpentry skills had made this. And it was like, it was 3 layers. It was like a 3-layered, so you could like fold it up really small, but it would go out. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. So he had made it out of wood. Now, interestingly, the wood of the ladder exactly matched some wood planks that were in this dude's attic. So it looked like the dude had taken some planks off of his attic floor and fashioned them into a ladder, is essentially what it looked like. They said the fucking, you know, the grain matched. There were even in the ladder, they found these, the like nail marks that matched up with like the joists in his attic and all this other kind of shit. So they're like, well, obviously this has got to be our guy, right? Because it's like, that's, you know, and he didn't really have a lot of he didn't really have a good alibi as to where all this money came from, where, you know, why he had this dude's phone number and address written on his wall, you know, and like I said, the ladder thing and the wood in the attic, that seemed pretty definitive. So yeah, so they arrest him. Like I said, he didn't really have a good alibi for any of that shit. So they put him on trial. And now, as I said, at the time, this was a massive like media. Oh my God. There's like, they said they had so many people coming into the town where they were doing the fucking trial that it's just like every single hotel was sold out. It was just like there was millions. I saw like some pictures from the time and it's just like there's fucking thousands and thousands of people just like cramming the sidewalks and everything like that. It was like a big deal. Now they wouldn't let the media inside the courtroom. So what they would do is they would reenact the scenes. Like they would go in and like listen to the shit and then they would come out and reenact the stuff and reenact all the dialogue, if you want to call it that. And then they would like edit those and then they would show them in the movie theater like as newsreels. So they would do that. Now there were a couple, I did see one of those online and I'm not sure if it was a reenactment because I think later on, like, I think during Bruno Hauptmann's, you know, when the prosecution was questioning him, I think somebody, like, snuck a camera in there, but I'm not really sure. So it might have been a reenactment or it might have been the real thing. I couldn't really tell because, like I said, it was, like, really old footage. But, you know, and honestly, I think that this particular trial was what kind of one of the trials. It was kind of like, you know, iconic for a lot of reasons. But I kind of feel like it was one of those ones where, you know, it made it so that you couldn't have cameras in the courtroom or you could have cameras. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like some big deal about that. Now, the guy who was defending Hauptmann was this dude that was hired. His name was Edward Briley. What are you doing?
I don't know what she's doing.
Holy crap. I don't know. I just heard noise over there. I don't know what she's up to. This dude named Edward Briley was defending him. Now, he was actually hired by the New York Daily Mirror to serve as Hauptmann's attorney, and that was in exchange for Hauptmann's story getting published in their paper. So they were doing all that kind of stuff. Now, as I said, because they found, I don't know, because I've seen like different sources say some of them said $14,000 a gold certificate, some of them said $20,000. It was a shit ton of money of the ransom money was in Hauptmann's garage. They did a bunch of handwriting analysis, and okay, so the prosecution had 8. Like, handwriting analysis is not an exact science, I'll put it that way. And especially
it's pretty good though.
Well, back in the 30s, though.
We don't know exactly.
Nowadays, probably better.
Yeah.
Back in the 30s, they were actually able. The prosecution was actually able to get 8 experts, I believed, that said that the spelling and handwriting and everything like that looked like Hauptmann's, like in the notes. Now, I saw a documentary on PBS where they did a computer handwriting analysis where they said they didn't think that some of the notes were written by him. But so I don't really know. Like I said, handwriting analysis is very...
We all have certain habits.
We do,
the same things over and over again.
But it should never be the one thing that convicts somebody, because I don't think it's kind of like a lie detector in the sense that, you know, yeah, it could be accurate, but it might not be. I just think there's too much wiggle room.
Write with your left hand.
Well, yeah. That's what I mean. And honestly, like, if I was going to do, like, I'm not going to kidnap anybody for ransom, obviously. But yeah, or you do, like, because some serial killers or something like that, where one trick they'll do is they'll trace over printed letters.
Yeah.
That's another thing they do.
Or you can cut words out.
Or cut words out, yeah.
Out of a magazine.
Just, you know, wear gloves.
Yeah.
Just look at us giving pro tips to, like,
Teach you how to evade the fucking...
Anybody that, like, reads true crime, like, in the past, that's, like, old school shit. That's, like, you could have learned that from reading detective stories, like, back in the fucking early 20th century. We're not telling anybody anything they don't know. Yeah. Everybody watches true crime shit nowadays.
The same techniques over and over and over again to evade prosecution. The best way to evade prosecution is never to get indicted. If you don't get indicted by fucking foiling the investigative process.
Yeah.
That way they don't know the crime scene, they don't know the victim, they don't know the murder weapon, they don't know the time, they don't have the suspect, you're not associated with it. You know. That's how it's always been done.
Yeah.
And the world's intelligence agencies learned it from the fucking world's best organized criminal gangs. They knew exactly how to foil.
Well, yeah, because a lot of, I mean, and I'm thinking right now of the case of, like, Frank Abagnale, who they made Catch Me If You Can about, who was a master forger.
Yeah.
And he's fascinating, by the way, if you ever, like, read that book. They made a movie about it, too. The movie was okay, but it had Leonardo DiCaprio in it, but the book is much better. The shit that this dude pulled was just, like, crazy. Like I said, he was a forger, and he got away with it for a really long time. Like, he fucking flew planes, he did surgery, he did all kind of crazy shit. And he would forge checks that he would cash, so he was, like, had all this money and everything. And he, after he got caught, he turned and helped the FBI catch other forgers using his... Although he was kind of, like, the best of the best. But like I said, that's what they do. I'm like, hey, if you know your shit, they're going to use your information, you know, to catch other people like you. Yeah. So that's what they did.
They had some kid, his mom was rooting him on, and he was just running around. They called him the Barefoot Thief. He would break into people's summer homes in real rich fucking areas. He was a rich kid, but he was a criminal rich kid. He would break into people's summer homes and live in there for a while and live in luxury. And then he walked around barefoot. Wherever he'd go, he'd leave these barefoot footprints. And then he'd go fucking to the local airport and break into an airplane and steal that airplane and fly it to another airport and then do the same things over and over again. He just lived for free by stealing airplanes. We didn't steal the airplane. Well, yeah, it's stealing the airplane. He didn't take it. It's just he would land it and walk away from it, you know. And then make his way into the rich summer homes of very rich people and live in there for months and months at a time in people's shit. And this fucking... They were looking for him. They knew exactly who he was. They couldn't catch him for a long, long time. He was on America's Most Wanted. His mom was rooting him on. Oh, he's a good kid, that type of deal. Fucking, and he had all these advanced skills for like a 22-year-old dude. He could do a little bit of everything. You know, fucking kayaking, mountain climbing, fucking Paris. He was just a thrill seeker.
Yeah.
But kind of like in the same lines as these forgers that could do weird shit. You know what I mean? Just, I don't know.
Yeah,
It just came to mind.
honestly,
he had no problem stealing an airplane. He did not have a pilot's license. He did not know how to fly an airplane by the book. He would just get in an airplane and fly it, like you do. That's balls.
well, like I said, that's kind of like what Frank Abagnale did as well.
Yeah.
And as I said, he flew planes. He didn't have a pilot's license either.
Yeah.
He totally like put on. Got a uniform somewhere and pretended he was like a pilot and like hung out with all the stewardesses and he did all kind of fucking. This is back in like the 60s. I think it was the 60s.
I'm confident I could fly a fucking fixed-wing aircraft. I don't know about a fucking rotor.
Well,
aircraft.
I'm not confident enough to get into it with you. So.
I'm confident I can fly one. But do I have the balls to get into an airplane, if it's not a life or death situation, and fucking fly it and land it? Man, it had to be a life or death situation.
That's what I mean. It's like if I had to, I could probably like take off and fly it. Landing it, that's a whole other issue.
I know the basics. I'm sure I could get the feel for it. I know the very basics. Just why would I put myself at that kind of risk? But you got to look at it this way. The danger is landing.
That's what I just said.
When you're landing, you're under 100 miles an hour and you're already on the ground anyway. So it's no worse than a motorcycle wreck.
That's true.
Okay. So I can see it that way. But it would be nerve-wracking to be in the sky at fucking 40,000 feet flying that fucker. Into clouds. Not really knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, no thanks.
You know what I mean? Like what happens if you get into a stall?
That's what I mean.
I'm not sure I could get out of a stall.
That's why pilot's training is important because I kind of feel like one of the things they train you for, like probably flying the shit is easy when everything's going good.
It's the emergencies.
It's when, it's like, okay, well, what happens if this happens? What contingency plans?
Yeah.
That's one thing that you can't really learn on the fly because you're dead.
You get into a flat spin
right.
in a Cessna and you can't power out of it. How do you get out of that shit? I mean, usually this is to nose down, try to get as much fucking speed as... But will you nose down in a flat spin? Probably not. I don't know. I'd have to do some time on a simulator and read up on shit. But unprepared, I couldn't just jump into a fucking single-seat propeller plane and go, yeah, I'm gonna fly this bitch and land it and be totally confident. I'd be shitting my pants.
Well, see, the thing about it is that if somebody did do that, you only hear about the ones that succeed.
Yeah.
Probably like the 50 other people that tried to do it and didn't succeed are dead, so you don't hear about it.
I have a feeling that kid was a fucking psychopath. And he just didn't have any damn stress because he just didn't.
He didn't care, or
he didn't care.
He wasn't afraid of it.
Yeah, unafraid of it because he just didn't care.
That's what I mean. Like in some ways, that's kind of cool not to have any fear of anything, but they don't have any feelings about anything.
Yeah.
That's why they can do shit like that because they don't care about anything.
Right.
They don't have any emotions about anything.
Yeah.
Sheila Ann says the ladder's rungs were spaced far apart, could definitely drop a baby coming down. It's dark. I honestly kind of thought that too because the ladder that they found, which was left at the scene, was kind of broken. So there were some theories swirling that the kidnapper or kidnappers actually didn't intend to kill the baby or didn't intend to kill the baby right away, but that in the process of bringing the baby down from the window, that the ladder broke and they dropped the baby. And so they were like, well, shit. Yeah, I do think, although I've seen some other... I've seen like some kind of like modern pathologists and stuff like look at the skull and they're like, to me, they're like, this one injury on one side of the skull, they're like, yeah, that could have been caused by a fall. But there was also an injury on the other side of the skull, which looked like it was caused more like on purpose.
Maybe they injured the baby and then finished it off.
So maybe, I'm not really sure. But yeah, that is a possibility that they dropped the baby off the ladder because the ladder was actually kind of broken. And it was, so if you dropped him from like 2-story. So there is that. But that is one thing that is... So I don't know if that necessarily... I mean, I guess that could have happened. But as I said, I kind of feel like they didn't really have any intention of keeping the baby. I think they were intending probably to kill the baby at some point. Maybe they just dropped him and they were like, well, we were going to kill him anyway, so it seemed like we just killed him earlier than we thought. Because when they found the baby, they said, well, the decomposition points to him being killed probably the night he was taken. And the fact that he was less than 5 miles from the house would seem to back up that assertion. Because if he hadn't died the night of the abduction, then why would he only be like less than 5 miles away from the house? Because the kidnappers, if it was who they said it was, lived in fucking New York. And, the Hopewell house, the Lindbergh's house in New Jersey, was a big estate. It had like a bunch, like a huge, like I said, I saw a picture of it from the air like back then, and it was like a massive, like 60 something acres. So there was just like land all around it. So I don't think anybody would have come back there later, like killed the baby and then come back there to bury it. So I kind of feel like he probably did die. Whether it was accidental or on purpose, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, they absolutely could have like dropped him from the ladder. So I don't really know. So, as I mentioned, so at the trial, they brought forth all the stuff about the ladder being made of the same planks as in the attic. And remember, this is the quote that I was trying to remember. Remember when I said they asked him, like, why do you have Dr. Condon's address written on your wall in pencil and his phone number? And this is what Bruno Hauptmann said. He said, I must have read it in the paper about the story. He was German, so his English was not great. I was a little bit interested and keep a little bit record of it, and maybe I was just on the closet and was reading the paper and put it down the address. I can't give you any explanation about the telephone number.
He's lying.
And this is on the stand.
Yeah.
So the fact that he couldn't come up with even like a plausible sounding story, I mean, come on. Now, some other circumstantial evidence that was, brought up by the prosecution was also, they're like, dude, this guy was like a carpenter. He didn't have a shit ton of money. However, not too long after the kidnapping, he had bought a $400 radio, which $400 in the 1930s, I looked it up and that's like almost $8,000. $8,000 for a radio. What the fuck did this radio like wipe your ass, and was it like gold plated and had fucking can contact Mars and shit? Holy crap. Fucking $8,000. I can't imagine what a radio that would do that would make it worth $8,000. You know what I'm saying? Even back then. I mean, I know it was a bigger deal and everything, but holy shit. But yeah, so he had bought this really expensive radio, and his wife had gone on a trip to Germany, and they just thought it was fishy because they're like, yeah, he wouldn't really be able to afford that, like on his salary, unless he had all this extra money. Now, interestingly, Condon later identified Hauptmann. It's interesting because his name is Bruno Richard Hauptmann, but from everything that I could determine, even though Bruno was his first name, he usually went by his middle name. So he usually was called Richard Hauptmann, but everybody just calls him Bruno Hauptmann. So Dr. Condon said, yeah, this was the guy that I met up with in the cemetery that I, gave the note and then I gave the money to. Although I will note that Dr. Condon said that at the trial, but when they questioned him at first, that's not what he said. And to be honest, the sketch that they did of the guy that he saw, you know what? It might be Bruno Hauptmann, but some other shit that came out later makes me think that it might be another dude. But I'm not entirely sure. There's the possibility it could just be Bruno. But it's interesting that Dr. Condon, when they first arrested Bruno Hauptmann and they asked Dr. Condon, is this the guy you saw? He wouldn't identify him. He's like, I'm not really sure. But then at the trial, he came forward and said, he's like, yeah, that's totally him. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. So there was a little bit fishy there too. So there was that, and then they had like a bunch of other witnesses come forward, like people that had been working at the stores where the other gold certificates were spent, and said, yeah, that's the same guy, blah, blah, blah. They also said that he had been out of work on the day that the ransom was paid, so there was that. And then 2 days later, he had quit his job, and that he had continued to live a comfortable lifestyle, even though he didn't get another job. So there was that whole thing too. You missed the part about the $8,000 radio.
An $8,000 radio?
Well, back in the 30s, They said that one of the things was that, well, he must have come into some money because he bought a radio that in the 1930s cost $400, which in today's money is almost $8,000.
Yeah, okay.
And I said, what the fuck could a radio do that would make it worth $8,000? What? I can't think of a single
Must have
thing.
had some really good speakers on it.
I can't think of a single thing. Honestly, I can't think of a single thing. I can't think of a single electronic thing nowadays that I would pay $8,000
Well,
for.
think of the $5,000 VCRs that we used to see when we were kids.
Which, why? It's like, it couldn't have
Because they
been
were
that
brand
much
new.
better than, I mean...
Well, it was very early 80s, remember? And the fucking
Mm-hmm.
VCR was $1,000 to begin with. And some of them, those fuckers were $5,000 because they could...
They were very expensive back in the old days.
Well, I
which
think
is
the
very funny.
$5,000 ones could copy a fucking VCR tape.
But then, like, a few years later, we got one.
Then everybody
and it
got
was
one.
like $100 or $200.
Yeah, right. But some people had to have that shit first. And it was made out of wood. A wood grain looking bullshit.
Yeah,
Remember
it wasn't
that?
even real wood, I
It
don't
wasn't
think.
even real wood, no.
It was just kind of like that fucking cheap
No.
ass. Ooh,
But it
it
had
looks
the
like
things
real
you press
wood.
the button and whee, like that. You
They're like,
tape it.
oh, I feel like I'm on the fucking Enterprise.
Yeah,
God damn.
whee.
So cool. I just, honestly, I can't think of a single thing, electronic thing that's cool enough that I'd spend even if I had $8,000. I can't think of a single thing. Man, I don't even like to spend $8,000 on a fucking car.
When I was a little kid in fucking very late 70s, early 80s, I remember people that had fucking laser disc. They were like a fucking album.
Yeah,
Remember those? They were
Yeah.
fucking shit. They were fucking shit expensive too. Super expensive.
I know. I told you I worked in
People would
a
spend like fucking $100.
I worked in a
to get
record
disc.
store in 1993, and they sold some in there. Although, honestly, the whole time I worked there, I never saw a single person buy one.
They were too expensive.
We only had 2 racks of them. We did have them available, but...
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeffy Art. I like your little, like, dance. Look at the little
Yeah.
dancing fox. Woohoo!
He's farting out
Woohoo.
fucking hearts.
He's a heart farter.
Thank
That's
you, Jeff.
That's what he is. Yeah, Maria says the radio had a cultural and social significance at that time that we have a hard time understanding now. Yeah, I get that, and they didn't have TV and everything like that, but still, man, a radio only really does one thing. You just, like, listen to programs on it. Back in the old days, you'd listen to, like, The Shadow or whatever was on in the 1930s. That might have been a little bit after that. I can't remember. Because my grandpa used to listen to that when he was younger. The Shadow knows, he always used to say. So, and when I was a kid, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Grandpa? But, I learned later. But so, I don't know. I just can't think of anything that would necessitate $400 in those days money on a radio. I don't know. It must have been a really awesome radio. That's all I'm saying. It had naked ladies and it made bacon and I don't know what the fuck it did. But yeah, $8,000. So yeah, so he had spent all this money on expensive shit. Like I said, he sent his wife to Germany and all this other stuff. Even though he didn't really seem to have a job or a job that would, give him enough money to be doing that kind of shit. So, so the prosecution's just kind of like, okay, well, we rest our case. Then the defense comes up. Now, the defense's whole case, and Bruno Hauptmann pleaded not guilty, and he pretty much maintained his innocence until the very end. He would not go back on it. The whole defense was that the money wasn't his, which, like I said, okay. He said that he had a friend named Isidore Fish, who had left the money in his garage. And I'm guessing, I think he said that he's like, well, I didn't really know what it was from or what the deal with it was, but he was just keeping it there, like in my garage. Coincidentally, conveniently, Isidore Fish apparently had gone back to Germany in late 1933 and had died there, I believe, of tuberculosis. So he wasn't there to, like, call for the defense. He was dead. So Hauptmann says, I didn't even really know, like, I was just out there in the garage and I found this box that Fish had left there, and there was, like, all this money in it, which was $40,000. So after Fish died, I was like, fuck it, and just started spending it. Possible, sure. Plausible, not really. And even his own wife said, this box that he says was in this garage, she's like, I used to hang my apron up there all the time, and I didn't see any fucking box. But I didn't notice it, like, all these years later. So there was that. And basically, it's kind of like, they had some other witnesses that came forward. Like the prosecution had some witnesses that said, look, this Isidore Fish guy, he did exist. He wasn't just like made up. But it's like, look, he couldn't have done what he did. Like he was somewhere else at the time. And he actually ended up dying of tuberculosis. And his landlady said that he was so broke that he couldn't like even afford his tuberculosis treatments or his rent or anything. So it seemed unlikely that he had all this money somehow. So nobody really bought that story. Now, so the defense attorney, that was pretty much the only defense they had. They didn't really have any defense about, the wood matching from the attic and the ladder and all that. And like I said, his excuse for, having the dude's phone number and address written on his wall was a little lame. So they didn't really have much. They were just kind of like, well, yeah, but all of the evidence is it's circumstantial. Nobody saw him at the scene. They never found his fingerprints. Actually, they didn't find anybody's fingerprints in the scene because it had all been wiped down. And they pointed out like some inconsistencies, like some of the witnesses. So like I said, Dr. Condon, who didn't identify Hauptmann at first. Like when he was first arrested, he's like, I'm not sure if that's him, but then I definitively ID'd him at the trial. So they kind of pointed that contradiction out as well. It's like, oh, so he wasn't even sure, but now he's sure, blah, blah, blah. So the one scene that I saw, and like I said, I'm not sure if this is real or if it was a reenactment, but there was one point where the prosecutor and Bruno Hauptmann was like on the stand and they got into this big fucking like screaming match. And it was just like, it's really interesting to watch. I'm not sure if it's actors, like I said, if it was a reenactment. I think it was the real thing because I think somebody like snuck a shit in there, but it was pretty good. Like they released it to the media and everybody saw it. Cause like I said, they were showing like the dailies, I guess, if you call them that, from the trial, they were showing them in movie theaters, like as newsreels, like before movies and stuff. So, so as I said, this is kind of like, this was the thing. Remember when I said before that this is one of those kind of like iconic trials that made, so after this trial, they banned cameras from inside courtrooms for a long time. I don't think it's banned anymore, but, it was for a long time. So at this point, Bruno Hauptmann, he absolutely, maintained his innocence. As I said, he would not confess. And a Hearst newspaper, which, you guys know about those.
Been to his house.
What?
William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah.
Been to his house. When I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Out in California, my mom took me.
Yeah, that's kind of a famous...
Hearst Castle.
Yeah, that's kind of a famous...
It looks like a damn Greek fucking gardens outside, and it's like something out of the movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go. Yeah,
I think a lot of people have been there. It's what, yeah, I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah.
But, so one of the Hearst newspapers, there were several, but they said that they would give him and his family like a shit ton of money if he would just confess to the crime, but Bruno Hauptmann would not. So I think the fact that he wouldn't confess, even when, the newspaper guy said, we'll give you all this money, like even if, you go to jail or whatever, like your family at least will have it, because he had a wife and a kid. I think that was one of the main things that maybe got people thinking later that maybe he was innocent. But I'll get into that in a second. So he offered him all this money, but he wouldn't plead guilty. He also got a last-minute offer to commute his sentence from the death penalty to life without parole, because he did get the death penalty. So they said, well, you can do that. I'm not entirely sure what all the parameters were. Like, I don't know why exactly they made that offer, but they said you can commute it to life sentence. And he, again, refused. They said that was contingent upon him confessing to the crime, and he absolutely would not. So he would rather die than confess to the shit. I don't know if it was because he didn't want his family to live with the shame. I'm not really sure what it was, but he was actually willing to get killed if he indeed was innocent, which I'm gonna say right now I don't think he was, but if he was absolutely like not gonna confess, and he was willing to die for it. So the trial lasted 6 weeks. He got sentenced to death, and he got 2 appeals, like you normally would, and he was electrocuted in April of 1936. Now, because he would not confess, and because of some other shit, some other contradictions that were brought up at the trial, pretty much right after he was executed, people started thinking maybe there was some other shit going on in this case. Now, there's 3 schools of thought on this. One school of thought saying that Bruno Hauptmann was completely innocent and was essentially just railroaded because this was a high-profile case. So some people have even gone, these are kind of like the more crazy conspiracy theories where they're like all of the shit was like engineered, or he was, or they basically like railroaded him into it because they wanted to solve it because it was so high profile. So some people are saying he was completely innocent. He was just like a patsy. Then there are some that said he worked alone, which is basically what the FBI said. That's what the court said because they executed him. Then there's like the middle ground where he was guilty, but he had associates that were never apprehended. And that's pretty much where I'm falling. I think that he did it, but I don't think he worked alone. I just don't think that they caught the other people. That's all. And it's not that crazy because we'll get into that in a second. So like I said, I don't think he's completely innocent. There are some that do. His wife maintained, she lived a long time. She died in 1994. And she maintained his innocence so that she even tried to sue the state of New Jersey, like for wrongful execution and all this other kind of stuff. She didn't win, but you know what I mean. She basically, said that he didn't do it. She lived a long time though. She died when she was 95 years old. Now, so the thing about this, I think he had at least one other Confederate, maybe 2. Because one thing that was kind of interesting, there were some. They found some footprints at the scene, right? And it appeared that the footprints that were kind of like going from the ladder, like out of the, of the yard or whatever, it appeared that there were 2 sets of footprints. And indeed, it would be much easier if you were climbing up a ladder and like taking a baby out of a nursery and blah, blah, blah. It would be easier to like hand them off to another person rather than like working shit by yourself. But they did say initially, in the initial police reports, as far as I'm aware, that there were 2 sets of footprints. But at the trial later, I think the cops just said there was 1 set or didn't mention it. Okay, so there was that. And like I said, I'm not saying that Bruno Hauptmann didn't do it. I think he was there. But I think that he had help. I think there was a little, I don't know if I'd call it a gang, because I don't think it was that many people. But I think it was like 2 or 3 people. Now, interestingly, too, as I mentioned near the beginning of the show, normally the Lindbergh family would not be at the Hopewell house on a Tuesday evening because the house was not finished. It was still under construction, so they only stayed there on weekends. Now, the only reason they were there on this particular night was because the baby had been sick. Nobody knew this except for the family members and perhaps some members of the household staff, leading a lot of investigators to believe that at least somebody involved in this, maybe it was an inside job, in the sense that somebody might have given information to someone else, whether it was Bruno Hauptmann, whether it was one of the alleged Confederates. There might have been somebody that was working in the household that knew that the family was going to be there, because the world at large did not know that. Normally, they were only there on weekends, and they were never there on Tuesday nights. Also, the person that kidnapped the baby knew exactly where the nursery was, which again leads me to believe that they had some information from inside the house, possibly from one of the staff, being the nurse, the nanny, the butler, whoever. Now, at the time of the investigation, even at the time of the investigation in the 1930s, the detectives thought that too, because they thought it was very strange that the baby had been kidnapped on a night when the family would normally not be there. So one of the people they were looking at was this woman named Violet Sharp. Now, she was actually the maid of Lindbergh's parents? It was the house they normally stayed at in Englewood. It was either Lindbergh's parents or his wife's parents. I can't remember now. But they had a maid named Violet Sharp. And she was a suspect at the time, not for actually kidnapping the kid, but for giving whoever kidnapped the kid information that where the nursery was and blah, blah, blah. Interestingly, they questioned her, And she said some weird shit. Like, she kind of said some contradictory kind of stuff. Like, they couldn't really get a straight story out of her. So they were kind of interested, and they thought maybe she was involved. So they set up another interview with her. The day before this other interview, she committed suicide. So,
Guilty.
very interesting. So, as I said,
She must have been in on it.
I definitely think that they had help inside the house.
She must have been in on it, but it didn't go according to plan.
That's kind of what I'm leaning.
She felt guilty, so she killed herself.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think that at least somebody in the house had to have informed, like, the kidnappers.
Maybe the whole
what was going
dropping
on.
of the baby thing there might be something to that.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't want the baby to be killed. She just wanted to get some fucking money.
Some money, right. Which...
They must have dropped the baby.
And then they're like, well, fuck, no, let's go to plan
and
B.
Then maybe they injured the baby seriously and then killed the baby.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, shit. And then she killed herself once she was questioned.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, they're on to me or whatever.
I'll never get away with it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that does seem like pretty... Because it does seem... I mean, the timing of her suicide is suspicious. And they did say that when they interviewed her at first, they said that she said some weird shit. I haven't read the transcript or anything, but they said she made some contradictory statements. They couldn't get really a straight story out of her.
That's evidence that she found. That's evidence.
Yeah.
That's evidence that she felt responsible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of feel like whether it was just Bruno Hauptmann, whether it was more than one person, I definitely think there was somebody that was working in the household that told them what was going on, where the baby's room was and shit like that. Like, maybe she called them up and said, hey, they, normally they would have left by now, but they're here and this is where the window is and shit like that. I kind of feel like there was that. So some other theories about it, and I'll kind of get into, because I think somebody brought it up earlier on, but I'll get into that in a little minute too, as far as like inside job stuff goes. So there's this guy, and he's a Scottish journalist, and he's kind of looked into this case for a long time. His name is Ludovic Kennedy, and he honestly thought that that Hauptmann was completely innocent. He thought that a lot of the stuff about like the ladder that had been made from the attic boards and stuff like that was planted or manufactured, which, like I said, not impossible, but the bigger the conspiracy gets, like the more intricate, the less believable it is, because it's just too many moving parts. So I don't know if I necessarily buy that. I think there was too much evidence saying that Bruno Hauptmann was involved, but there are some authors out there that do think that he was completely railroaded, that a lot of the evidence was, planted on him or manufactured or whatever. They did actually, there was a book he wrote that came out in the 80s called The Airman and the Carpenter. And this movie was actually made into a movie on HBO in 1996 called The Crime of the Century that had Stephen Ray and Isabella Rossellini in it, which I think somebody mentioned earlier. I don't think I've seen it, actually. Although it sounds kind of familiar. Maybe I have seen it, but it was a long time ago.
I'll make us some food when this is over.
You think
How
about
about that crab salad?
Oh, yeah, that sounds good, actually.
Forgot all about that crab, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I didn't forget about it.
And then I got some bunch of coleslaw mix we need to use up. I'll make that into a salad with some crab salad on it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's get into a little bit what one of the people in the chat was talking about earlier. There are some schools of thought, as far as inside job goes, that Charles Lindbergh himself was behind this. But maybe not necessarily whether he wanted the kid to die or not. Yeah. But Charles Lindbergh, as I mentioned earlier, was, kind of beloved by America and stuff, but he seemed like he was maybe not the nicest dude. According to a couple of documentaries I saw and some stuff that I read, they said that he was a prankster, and not a prankster like, oh boy, like jolly fun, but a lot of kind of like, he would do like really cruel shit. And they said in particular, allegedly, he had pulled a prank before on his wife. I hesitate to call it a prank, because this is not funny. But he essentially took the baby and hid the baby and then told her that the baby had been kidnapped. And this was, I believe it was a few months before the actual kidnapping. because I guess he thought it was funny. I don't know. But he was kind of pulling shit like that all the time, which, again, suspicious. Now, what a lot of people, and like why I brought up the whole like eugenics thing and everything like that, and what some people have speculated is that maybe he didn't really want the kid around. I'm not saying he wanted the kid dead, but I'm just saying maybe he didn't want the kid around. Maybe he wanted to like quietly put the kid in an institution, and he thought like having him kidnapped would be the best way to do that. Because the kid supposedly had some physical, I don't want to say, let's say abnormalities. How severe they were is up for debate. Some people said, oh, well, he couldn't even, like, he was 18 months, you know, so he was almost 2. And it's like that he couldn't really stand up on his own, and his toes, like, overlapped each other. His doctor at the time, the medical reports at the time, said that he was, quote unquote, rickety, meaning he might have had rickets. But if he did, it was probably like a mild case. He didn't have, because if you've seen some people that had like really severe rickets where their legs are just like out like that, like I've seen some pictures of people with it, and where they couldn't like really walk at all. Probably the baby didn't have it that bad. If he did have it, it did seem like he might have had mild rickets, but and also he had another thing where, you know, his fontanelle had not.
What's that?
It's the soft spot on the baby's head, you know, where the skull hasn't grown over like when they're born. It hadn't healed completely, which it normally would have by the time he was that age. So some people have speculated that because Lindbergh was all into eugenics and he thought that he was part of the master race, and the fact that this kid that he had was not perfect,
and it wasn't up to snuff,
was maybe causing him just like, well, maybe I'm not as genetically superior as I thought I was, so I'm going to engineer. Like I said, I'm not saying that he necessarily had the kid killed or anything, but some people have speculated that, he staged a kidnapping and then he was going to have the kid put in an institution somewhere and, have him kind of disappear. Like I said, it's far-fetched. It's far-fetched. I will say that. It is a far-fetched proposition, but some people have put that out there. I will say one thing, though. Later on, like after the whole debacle with the kidnapping and, them finding the baby dead and this whole thing, him and his wife, I don't remember how long it was afterward. It might have been like after the Hauptmann trial was over, but they moved to Europe. I don't know if it was Germany or not, but like I said, he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to say cozying up to the Nazis, but he was kind of like hanging with them. And another thing that Lindbergh did, which actually didn't come out until much later, like probably like the 60s, because everyone just thought he was, like I said, America's sweetheart or whatever the male equivalent of that is. When he was in Germany, he supposedly, had another persona, like he had a fake name, and he went around, because of his superior genes, he went around impregnating a bunch of other women. So he had 7 or 8 other kids because he wanted to spread his superior genes around.
That has something to do with superior genes?
Yeah, well, that's what his thinking was.
How do you know that?
That's apparently, I don't know. I've heard that in a lot of places.
Not just cock. It's just cock hunger.
It might be.
Yeah.
But like I said, because of his writings, like the shit that he wrote about race and eugenics and stuff, people are like, yeah, we're pretty sure that he thought that his genes were so awesome that he needed to like spread them far and wide.
It's not just Anglo-Saxon folks. Fucking Jeffrey Epstein fucking thought the same thing. He had superior genes. He had a whole foundation to impregnate all these Florida girls. Now, I don't know what they did with the babies. One story is that they fucking blended them up and fucking re-injected them back into his veins as some kind of anti-age fucking technology.
Now that again sounds very far-fetched.
DNA, some kind of DNA treatment, clones of yourself. One theory is that he's making clones of himself and having girls carry him to term. And then the clone's born and you use the fucking parts. I don't know.
Like Parts, the Clonus horror.
Like the Clonus
that
horror.
movie. Horror,
Technology,
not horror.
man. Fucking biotech is fucking probably. It seems
Sorry, I was just thinking of that one episode of Mystery Science Theater where Servo made a bunch of clones of himself, and Crow was like, you're so cool, we need more of you.
Yeah, right. They got fucking megalomaniacs out there that fucking think that.
Well, that's why it makes me laugh, because I'm like, I'm sure that's what people are thinking.
And what's funny is that a lot of these fucking bitches that have all this money are basic bitches when you get down to it. There's nothing really special about them. And when you give an average motherfucker that much money and power, he acts a fucking fool. Acts a fucking fool.
Well, most people will act a fucking fool if they know that they can get away with anything.
I know.
They don't.
You bitches carry clones of me.
I mean, there aren't any consequences.
There's no consequences.
And if you take consequences away, then people will do all kind of crazy shit.
Yeah.
So, that's... Actions have consequences for peons like us, but
not for them.
Not for people with all the money.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that I saw on the end of a documentary they said back in I want to say it was maybe the 90s or the early 2000s or the mid 2000s where a bunch of Lindberghs they had done DNA tests, a bunch of Lindberghs grown children came forward. And they were like, yeah, he was going all over fucking Europe, impregnating women left and right with his superior genes. So here's all the grown children. So they were talking about that. But like I said, that didn't come out until a lot later, So that kind of fueled the whole, maybe he had the baby taken away by kidnappers because the baby was genetically inferior, because maybe he had rickets or maybe he had some other problems. But like I said, at least from the medical shit that I looked at from the time, they said, yeah, maybe the baby had rickets, but it was mild. But he didn't really seem to have anything else wrong with him. You know what I mean? He was a cute ass baby if you look at a picture of him. So it's kind of sad.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the baby.
I don't think there was anything wrong with the baby either. Like I said, maybe mild rickets, but that's they said his toes.
Stories.
His toes were overlapped. All his toes were overlapped. That's all. They said he wasn't.
Got a lot of motherfuckers with ugly ass toes. I was born with ugly ass toes.
Tom was born with ugly ass toes. Well, you've told that story, haven't you?
Feet are fucking ugly.
They're not.
Oh, well, some people have fucking cute ass little hamster feet and shit. Sometimes some girls fucking blessed with fucking cute
ass little hamster feet.
Little mouse feet. But by the time you're in your 40s or 50s, those bitches are busted ass, ugly ass looking fucking toes.
I don't think
Brie Larson toes.
My feet don't look that bad.
No, yours aren't that bad. Look at Brie Larson's fucking toes.
I have flat feet, but that's about it.
Yeah, yours are flat. Fucking, you ever seen Brie Larson's toes?
Why would I have seen Brie Larson's feet?
That bitch walks down the red carpet with open toe shoes and
why would I be looking at her toes? I don't look at people's toes.
Because she talks so much shit, and then people fucking started posting pictures fucking on her toes and say, look at your, okay, you don't understand it.
No, because I have better things to do than look at people's toes. Brie Larson had some
fucking busted ass looking fucking toes. I saw them.
I'm just saying.
They look like claws.
I have better things to do than look at people's toes.
Yeah, they look like claws.
I mean, feet in general, unless you have a foot fetish, feet in general are not an attractive part of the human body.
Yeah.
So
feet age out quickly. You know what I mean? Fucking sometimes some girl might have some cute feet. But like I said, they don't last because you're putting those feet in fucking shoes and walking around on them your whole life, and they fucking get all gnarly and shit.
See, this is why I only put shoes on when I go outside. Yeah. If I'm in the house, I'm barefoot, bitch. I don't like wearing shoes. Yeah. Shoes aren't good for your feet. Walk around barefoot. That's how we evolved. But not outside, but
Jenny will tell you anything.
No, I won't. But
fucking walk around barefoot outside on the ground.
That's not what I just. That's not what I just said.
Okay,
what did I just say?
Okay.
What did I just say? I said
come to Egypt.
I said not outside.
I lived in
quote
Egypt.
Unquote.
I lived in Egypt.
He doesn't listen to me.
Desert.
He doesn't listen to me.
I listen to these fucking desert riding, fucking camel riding, fucking Bedouins. I'm hanging out with them. Fucking, we're sitting there, fucking cooking food over the fire, and their fucking feet look like shoes. Yeah. Their feet look like leather shoes. Fucking, they were flat. That much fucking callus on the bottom of them. They could run across the sand, fucking all that damn sand, hot as shit, 150 degree fucking sand, and they just fucking stand there in the fucking baking sand. Well, because they got a callus on the bottom of their shoe thicker than the fucking sole of a damn leather shoe. All right? The women the same way.
Oracle says ballet dancers have scary looking toes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they're on those fucking toe shoes all the time,
Yeah.
which I wore when I was a little kid, but I didn't, if you did years and years of that, yeah, your toes are going to be all fucked up.
Yeah.
Actually, some ballet dancers, like, actually, their toenails, like, fall out.
In general, you want to avoid feet. You just
Hard to avoid feet. You kind of have to walk on them.
I got a shoe fetish. All right.
He's got a shoe
I
fetish,
got a
but he
shoe
hates
fetish.
feet.
Not a foot fetish. I got like a shoe fetish. I love shoes, and it's not so bad where I just need the shoe. I gotta have the woman and the shoe. It's a fucking bonus,
Yeah, not just the shoe.
Just the shoe. Yeah, some dudes have
It's
it
like,
so
fuck
bad.
the bitches. I'm just going to sleep with this shoe.
Some dudes have it so bad they don't even need the woman. They just need the shoe. Okay, I'm not that bad. Okay.
Oh my god. Yeah, Oracle says, yeah, trust us, folks. Don't Google images of ballet dancers' feet. Yeah,
Yep.
don't. Tammy says, I never have shoes on inside either. Honestly, to me, I don't know. I've never been a kind of person. And, like, I know, like, people are kind of one way or the other about it, because I was just reading an article about this the other day. Oh, you know what it was? I was watching a video about, like, British people react to, like, weird shit in America. And they have a perception over there that all Americans wear shoes inside the house because that's what they've seen on TV and in movies. And I said, well, on TV and in movies, they probably just have, like, the actors have the shoes on because, they don't want to have to, like, take them on and off, like, when
television?
we're on the set. Yeah.
Well, it looks better too.
But yeah, and it looks better. So, but I said, I think it's about 50-50. Some people, they get up, they get dressed, they put shoes on.
I wear shoes all day.
Yeah, he wears shoes all day. I don't, because to me, it's dirty.
Yeah.
Because I wash my feet 2 or 3 times a day. I never wash the bottom of shoes. So I just kind of feel like, bare feet that have been washed are cleaner than shoes that don't get washed. So I don't know. So honestly, I just grew up as soon as, now I would never go to somebody's house who I didn't know all that well and take my fucking shoes off. Okay. Now, if somebody told me, hey, we don't wear shoes in the house, I'd be like, okay, fine. And I would take my shoes off because I know people have that. But I'm not going to take my shoes off in someone else's house unless they tell me I can, or unless it's like family or like really close friends or something. But when I'm in my own house, I never wear shoes. I only wear shoes if I go outside.
See, I clean floors. I got carpet shampooers and vacuumers and shit like that, so I don't worry about it. And I don't get on the floor that much. If I get on the floor, I got little rugs I get on. I got fucking Arabic prayer rugs I get down and work on shit. I actually don't like to sit in chairs. I'd actually like to either lay in beds or sit on floors. But I'm mostly standing. Or sitting on like that little damn box thing.
Interestingly,
I don't like chairs that much.
well, I sit on this chair, but I like this chair because
Yeah.
it's wide so I can sit cross-legged.
Yeah.
Which is like I'm sitting on the floor. Because I can't sit in a chair like a normal person because
don't
my
like chairs,
legs
yeah.
are short. And so after a while, like my feet touch the floor, but it's still not super comfortable.
Yeah.
My first instinct when I get in a chair is sit cross-legged in the chair. So I can't sit in chairs that are too narrow for me to do that.
In
It's
general,
really
I don't
uncomfortable.
like your average American house. The average American house is filled with a bunch of junk. There's too much furniture in it, from my point of view. There's a bunch of little fucking knickknacks and foo-foo. It goes back to my grandmother's era and shit. People will have too much goddamn stuff in a fucking house. They get a little bitty fucking house, they're poor, and then the next thing you do is they jam-pack that motherfucker full of cheap furniture and shit like collector's plates and fucking little statues.
That's like an
worth
old
of
person
shit.
thing.
All that shit needs to be thrown out. Less is better. I like simple, clean stuff. I just don't understand it. Every little fucking nook and cranny has got to have some kind of fucking piece of goddamn furniture in it that you don't use. It's just stupid.
Zach says, unless I have to go somewhere real important, I usually don't wear underwear. Hashtag free the testicle.
Man, Zach's just up here. He's coming onto my channel trying to attract men. Okay? Fucking nobody cares that you run around commando. Everybody runs around commando. if
Tom
you're a
does
commando.
too.
Well, it depends. Depends on what I'm doing. But yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what I'm wearing. If I'm wearing something that's gonna like have VPL, then I won't.
Yeah. Right.
But if it's a skirt or something like that, then yeah, I'm gonna put like some fucking put some little booty shorts on underneath that shit. Oracle says, I wear slippers inside the house as a rule. And yeah, a lot of people have that, like, particularly, like, I think Asian households, Asian Americans, you know, they think it's dirty, like, to wear shoes inside the house. So they'll usually have, like, house slippers. You know, so you take your shoes off as soon as you come in and you put the slippers on and walk around.
A lot of it has to do with Asia. If you live in Korea, those motherfuckers spit on the fucking ground all the time outside, throw chewing gum and shit. And they're in a very highly populated area, so they're constantly in a metropolitan area. So yeah, you're walking across ground.
Yeah, but around here, it's like people walk their dogs and there's dog poopy and stuff like that. Like,
no,
you know,
I've never
like...
stepped in any dog shit around here.
Although I saw some when we were walking yesterday.
I walk on pavement.
There was some on the pavement.
I didn't see it.
I saw it. You didn't see it, so it didn't exist.
It didn't matter.
If it didn't happen to him, it didn't happen.
Nope.
I even told you.
No.
I said, "Oh, look, dog shit."
Walk around on a lawn. Here's the thing.
He does not listen to me.
Motherfuckers get sensitive. When I was in the Army, I would fucking get up in a damn pile of leaves with the spiders and the fucking bugs and fall asleep.
Nothing wrong with spiders and bugs.
Okay. So I'm just not sensitive.
I'm not sensitive about spiders and bugs. I'm sensitive about poop. I don't want to be stepping in poop and tracking that all over the carpet because I got to clean that.
Lay down in the goddamn mud and fucking make a nice little fucking thing in my fucking jacket and fall asleep in the pouring rain. Y'all don't know how good you have it.
Well, like I said, I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about poop.
I'm not worried about poop because
I don't like poop.
I don't step in poop.
I don't want it. Well, that you know of.
I don't step in it. I see where I'm going.
What if you don't see it?
I can smell it. Okay. I can smell it a fucking mile away.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot that Tom's perfect and knows everything.
Yep.
That's right. Thank you, David June.
Thank you.
I can send y'all some feet pics.
No, I don't want to see feet.
Well, some people might be into it. I don't know.
Fuck that.
Thank you, Zach.
Fuck that shit.
Agree with Tom. I love the houses Frank Lloyd Wright did. He's an artistic idol of mine, and I think his life would make a great show topic. Honestly,
like big open spaces and fucking clean stuff.
I don't think it was you, Zach, but somebody sent me the book about that murder that took place at the Frank Lloyd Wright house, at his house. And I didn't actually know about that. Like, I knew who Frank Lloyd Wright was, obviously, and I'd seen, like, a lot of his designs and stuff, but I didn't know about that whole murder situation.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that was, like, fucking hardcore. So probably, I'm going to write that down, too. I'm going to do a show about that, too, because, man, what a good book that was. It's called Murder in a Prairie House, by the way.
I think it's funny, you know what I mean? A lot of working class and middle class people, they're obsessed, especially the older generations. Boomers are really big into fucking buying a house and stuffing it filled with fucking useless possessions to impress relatives or neighbors that never come over to your fucking house anyway. If you look at here in Florida and look at the mansions that they have here, the newer McMansions. I say McMansions as kind of a derogatory. But if you actually look at what's in those, they're empty. They look like hotels. They pick that shit up out of a damn catalog. Even the furniture comes out of a catalog. It's kind of like you're walking into a damn hotel more than a house. The people that own those aren't in there very much. They don't go to most of those rooms that are in that house. They'll live in a real small apartment inside that house. And they move from one house to the other. Because they have 5 of those. 10 years later, when those things age out, they demolish them or abandon them or sell them or abandon them. Then they tear them down. They're not even worth any money. It's just not like it was back in the old days. You would think, well, what do you mean it's a $5 million mansion? I challenge you to sell it. No one will buy it. Because the mansion game is all real rich people. And rich people only want brand new mansions that are built to their specifications. They don't want used mansions. They just don't. So they move away from a mansion and it fucking ends up sitting there and then getting demolished. And then they build another McMansion on it. It's a weird game, man. But you can go all over YouTube and see people that break into those abandoned McMansions. And they videotape them from the inside. They do not videotape them. That's an old fucking term. They'll record the insides and make a whole like urban exploration show of fucking McMansions. What's in there? When the house fucking exceeds $1 million, you almost can't sell it anymore. They're gonna tear it down and build another one.
Yeah, I mean diminishing returns.
Diminishing returns.
Mr. Roboto says, hi, Jenny and Tom. Hi.
What's up?
Is the house complete? Meaning, well, the closing
No, it's
is
got a lot of shit it's got to do.
the 16th.
16th, yeah.
But we have, like, some shit. We got the sprinkler system fixed.
Yeah.
So there's that. The guy came yesterday.
Yeah, I'm going to redecorate that outside. I'm going to get do different with the landscaping. The landscaping's fucked up on this house. And the paint.
It's not terrible, but it needs some shrubbery on the side, I feel like. The side looks kind of
I'm going to get a professional in here to fucking get this shit looking right.
Thank you, Jeffy Art. I wear cowboy boots almost all the time, but always take them off when I get in the apartment. There's a reason they're called shit kickers. Yeah. Yeah, see, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I don't like wearing shoes anyway. It's very confining. So I only put shoes on when I go outside.
Jacqueline, listen what Jacqueline said, man.
Yeah,
she's right. She's right.
That's one of my favorite speeches I've ever heard Tom make. I hate a bunch of stuff in a house too. Drives me crazy.
It drives me fucking crazy.
Oracle says, I don't trust people who don't have bookcases full of books. I don't either, actually. And I have, actually, I need some more bookcases because I have, like, you guys can't see, but I have, like, these desks that I have these things on. They have little shelves on the side, and I have, like, piles of books and magazines over there because I didn't have room to put them anywhere else. I got 2 shelves over there. I got 1 shelf over there. And I have books fucking everywhere.
Well, when I'm talking about clutter, I'm not talking about bookshelves. I can understand that.
You're talking about, like, knickknacks.
I'm talking about what old ladies and the fucking boomers call knickknacks. They're going to put some kind of a fucking end table or something. And then they're going to put a bunch of bullshit on the end table. And then they're going to have a fucking couch that nobody sits in. And they're going to put end tables on these. And then there's going to be, like, all these little fucking tables. Little bitty fucking tables everywhere that don't do anything, and they just hold some kind of decoration. I fucking hate that shit. I just hate it. I like sleek. I like empty spaces that you can walk around in. I like things that are useful. Technology that... The idea is to have technology to eliminate things and to make things more efficient so you have more space inside your house that you can actually use. And yeah, okay, I believe you could have some furniture, but that's furniture that you use. I don't like shit that you don't use. The Japanese were right about that. If you looked at an ancient, well, not ancient, but 1700s Japanese house, it was just empty rooms with stuff that they'd bring out and they'd do stuff and they'd put it back. And they didn't have fucking knickknacks and fucking little statues of bullshit everywhere, and fucking, I don't know, I just associate it with my grandparents. I hate it. Collector's plates.
Gramther's Hammer posts a quote. I had heard this quote before, actually.
Yeah.
Rudyard Kipling. A man can never have too much wine, too many books, or too much ammunition.
Yeah. Okay, that's where...
Thank you, Zach. Gave us another super chat. The minimalism movement can be overkill, too. Yeah, I agree. Major liminal space vibes from some of them, or looks like an IKEA showroom that no one actually lives in. Yeah, I've seen that as well. I've seen it done where... it's just this massive room and there's like nothing in it.
Right.
Which, yeah, that's kind of like defeating the purpose because it's like all this space that you're actually not using.
A modern Florida mansion actually looks like a business. It has a living quarters in it, but the rest of it just looks like a hotel lobby. But that's fine. That's fine. That's great. I don't like all that fucking personal bullshit. Those houses are mostly businesses anyway, or those mansions are business. Running a mansion is like running a business. Very similar. So I understand.
I'm kind of in between. I like some of the real sleek, like ultra modern stuff, and some of the real spacious stuff. I like some of that aesthetic, but I also kind of like not the overly Baroque, like cluttered Victorian.
Yeah.
But I like the look of some of the Victorian. Like I really like that, that kind of like that wallpaper kind of shit with all the like creepy kind of shit. I like that.
That only makes sense in those houses.
But I don't like a lot of stuff that's like in your way or stuff that's like unnecessary. I don't have anything against. Having things in your house that are personal to you, like, as far as, tchotchkes or whatever.
What's a tchotchke?
Like a little thing, like a little statue or whatever. Yeah. I don't, because I have some shit like that, and honestly, to me, that just seems to like personalize a space or make me want to hang out in it.
But that's just 1 or 2 rooms, though.
Yeah, but so I kind of feel like Zach was saying, I kind of feel like the aesthetic can go too far in the other direction where everything is just sterile.
Yeah.
Which is another place I don't want to hang out in because it just looks like I'm at the dentist. So it's like, I don't know. I kind of like a happy medium.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I think even in a mansion, there's the living quarters and then there's the rest of the mansion. The rest of the mansion is basically like a hotel. It's kind of sterile. And it looks right that way because it's modern architecture. You couldn't go in there and make it Victorian unless that house was a real Victorian house. Then it makes more sense. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I had all the money, I would totally do like an old school, like Victorian Gothic. I would goth the fuck, but I wouldn't have like a lot of clutter because I don't like that either. But
you have to build that house.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If I had the money, I would totally do that because I like that aesthetic. But I don't want to be tripping over everything either.
Yeah, most of the shit around here, when you look at it, if it's a Florida mansion, it's pretty modern. So you couldn't do that. You couldn't do the Victorian stuff. It looks like something out of, the movies that you see about Florida, A Miami fucking mansion is kind of like the archetype. And it's glass and concrete. Fucking, it has boats that you can pull your boat up into a fucking landing instead of a driveway. It's got a fucking boat. It's got a river out in front of it. Not really a river, but a channel out in front of it that gets you to the ocean and shit. That's the way a lot of them are. Jeff Bezos pulls up in a damn yacht and parks it in front of his house. They just look real modern. But if you go inside, it just looks like a business or a nightclub in certain areas. Depends on the room. They have bowling alleys in them. That's what you're talking about. Look at them. They're fucking fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Roboto.
Would you use all that? I wouldn't. But they're all made to order. So, that's what that dude wants in it.
Thank you, Mr. Roboto. Tom reminds me of Mickey Rourke. That's what he said. Minus the hair.
I've heard that before.
Zach says to me, you'd hardwire the house with Giallo-style lights. Oh, yeah, I totally would do that.
Yeah. We already kind of have that.
Hot pink lit living room and dark green lit bathroom. You know what? In my old house, which was quite a great deal smaller than this one, the one that I owned in Daytona, I used Suspiria for my inspiration. And pretty much the whole house was done within reason, because I didn't have a lot of money. But I did it all in sort of like giallo colors. So like the living room was like blood red. The den was this kind of like dark blue. The halls were black. And then all the doors were black. And then they had like red. I painted these like kind of like Art Nouveau like insets on them, just like in Suspiria, like the doors in the school in Suspiria. So I painted that on there. And then the kitchen was hot pink. With black cabinets. And then we had another room in the back that was like an office that was like a purple. The bedroom was blue. And then the spare room, what the fuck color was that? I can't remember what color I painted the spare room. Maybe that was blue too, or maybe that was green. I can't remember. Maybe purple. I don't know. But I painted it all this because I really like saturated colors. I don't like any of this. I don't like beige. I don't like any of these kind of like bullshit, like faded colors. That's bullshit. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tila. Thank you so much. That's very nice of you. Jenny, happy New Year's for all the hard work you do and for having to put up with you-know-who. Just kidding. But not really. Love to the best chat peeps. Aw, thank you so much. That's really, really nice. He just he went to the bathroom, I think. But I'll tell him when he gets back. But yeah, so honestly, I think it came out nice. If I'd had more money, because like I said, I couldn't really like afford. Tila just sent us a very, very nice super chat.
Oh, did she, T?
And she says she just showed up.
Tila's fucking busting it
She
out.
says, "Happy New Year's for all the hard work I do and for having to put up with you."
Thank you.
Well, she said you know who, but we all know
okay.
who
She
she
been talking about me?
Yeah.
Talking about her husband?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Love you too, T.
Honestly, like I said, if you're gonna paint a room, paint a fucking room. Don't just do this, oh, it's beige, it's eggshell.
Yeah.
To me, that just seems like, why even paint it?
No.
It just seems like it's not even a color.
Well, they're doing that because they can resell the house without having.
I know, but it's just kind of like, if you're gonna have a color, have a fucking color.
Yeah.
Make a statement.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, which is why I painted this room black.
Tila's just jumping in now.
Yeah.
She's just jumping up late and just throwing a motherfucker all these bills, all this money.
And honestly, like you can't see it, but my dressing room and my bathroom in there, I did those in a whole Art Nouveau Alphonse Mucha theme. So I painted them like absinthe green, and I have like all like Alphonse Mucha. I even have an Alphonse Mucha shower curtain. I got that on Amazon. It took like forever to get here. I was so excited when I got it. But yeah, so because I've always like loved his artwork. I love all that Art Nouveau shit. So yeah, I did a whole Art Nouveau thing in there. Honestly, one of these days, you know what I'd like to do with one of the rooms in this house? I want to do a whole Lovecraft / Cthulhu theme. I want to do like the wall. I want to do like an ocean kind of like ombre kind of look where it's like dark blue to light blue or teal or something, and then put all kind of like fucking Lovecraft and like octopus shit all over it. I'd love that. But that's just me. That's what I would do.
I'm gonna get Pookie Pants up on the show.
You gonna get Pookie on the show?
Yeah.
Somebody asked us about
Come here, Pookie Pants. Come here.
Pookie in Beijing. Where did it go?
Come here.
How long you had Pookie in Beijing and why the pet names? Pookie we have had, she is 4.5.
Yeah, Beige is over 10 years. She's 12 years old.
Beige is 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So you had Beijing before I even met you.
Yeah, Beige is old.
I mean, she was kind of little, like when we first started like hanging out.
She's in good shape though.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know
She's still very, very playful.
Yeah.
Um,
You doing Pookie Pants?
Pookie, we got her in, I think, the summer of 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, when she was like a baby still. She was a kitten. And so we've had her for...
We raised Pookie Pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like apparently like some like friend of your mom's had like found her, or that's what the story was.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe it.
I don't believe it either, but I'm just saying that's what the story was. Yeah. Oh, I found her in my backyard and like a dog was attacking her.
Yeah, and bit her tail off, and
Which is dumb because
Fuck
we found
no.
out later that she's probably
she's a Manx.
She's
She
a
was born that way.
Manx. She had a tail. Like
It was a
that.
Brazilian friend of ours, and Brazilian women that are trying to make money tell stories. I grew up in Brazil and know all about it. Try to tell it, and then she thought it was a male cat and named it and fucking, and she.
And
was
as soon
talking
as we
about
got her,
I was
Tom's
"That is
like, "That's a female
that's
cat."
a female cat. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to tell when they're kittens, but the way, because of their, you have to look at their butt and everything, but the way she was acting,
I can
Tom's
just
like, I'm
tell.
pretty sure that's a female cat.
Yeah.
And it turned out,
Yeah.
that was a female cat.
Yeah.
So she
Just tried to make up an exciting story to get me to take the cat.
but we were going to take her anyway, because as
Yeah.
soon as she sent the picture, I was just kind of like, oh, we're having that kitten. Because how cute she was. She was so little. I have a video of her somewhere, like the day or...
She was the size of a baseball.
She was tiny, tiny.
Yeah.
And she had this big blue eyes. I mean, her eyes are gold now, but all kittens' eyes are blue, which I didn't actually know until recently. All of their eyes are blue until they grow into whatever eye color they have. So she had, like, blue eyes when we got her, and she was tiny, tiny, tiny. And the woman that had her she had a bunch of dogs, so I guess she was just keeping Pookie in a cage.
In the garage.
In the garage.
In a hot-ass garage.
In fucking July.
Yeah. I said, we got to get the cat. Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, as soon as I saw the picture, I'm like, yeah, we're having... I mean, we'd been talking about getting a kitten anyway.
Yeah.
So we're like, yeah, we'll take her. And so she brought her over. And, like, seriously, that night, Pookie was just kind of like, oh, you're my new parents? Okay.
Look, I got to start making food.
Well, I was going to, like, try and finish the story.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't know if you're done or not.
Yeah, well...
Okay.
Oh, now you ask. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I was almost done.
Okay.
So one of the things that I wanted to say before we wrap it up is that recently
Thank you very
another... What?
No,
Oh, we got another one? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm behind. Where
You're
am
way
I?
behind.
Thank you, Mr. Roboto. You should probably do a goth theme on a budget. Yeah, it's hard to do, though. I mean, some of this... I have, like, expensive tastes, I guess. Some of the stuff I really like, I'm like, oh, I really like that, but it's, like, so expensive. You know what I mean? All the stuff that you can get for cheap, like, doesn't really look that good.
Yeah, isn't that good?
So, yeah, it's kind of a shame. I mean, I should probably, like, learn to make my own stuff. Then that would probably solve a lot of problems. But, yeah, so recently a book came out, because, like I said, the Lindbergh case, it's kind of everybody kind of has their own theories about it. But this one actually kind of sounds like maybe there's something to it. Like I said, it's not crazy.
No, the swoop shaft.
But thank you, Zach. Was watching some Hammer movies. Seems like the colorful lighting in those influenced the Giallo movies. I love movies with real vibrant aesthetics. Yeah, I do as well. And honestly, like all that shit from like Hammer movies, if I could live in a house from a Hammer movie, I totally would.
We have lots of color. We got smart lighting and laser beams and shit. It's always like you go out in the living room right now. It looks like a damn nightclub.
Well, that's why the lighting in here. I just really like all the kind of like primary color lighting. I don't ever turn lights on in here other than these lights.
Got RGBs and bliss lights that fucking project galaxies and nebulas, and at night it looks quite exciting in here. Just got a more super chats. Everybody's fucking throwing the money our way. That's great.
Thank you, Victor. Done? I thought y'all were just starting.
We've been going on for hours.
Well, only 2.5 hours, which is actually kind of short for us.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Because I kept my mouth shut.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't remember that happening.
No, I kept my mouth shut.
I don't remember you keeping your mouth shut.
Look, see, this is how she does. She's always trying to spin shit around.
But he's pretending like he hasn't like talk to talk.
No, I talk.
He's pretending that he had
drinking too much.
No, I haven't. I drank less than you actually, but
About the same.
It's just really funny how you're trying to like. He's trying to gaslight me, you guys, like into like. Yeah, you are.
Go back and watch it.
Oh, I will.
Watch it. I just sat there and let you do the show.
Yeah, but then you would talk and go on and on and on for a really long time about like some other.
Like 3 times.
Yeah, but for how long each time? That's the
minutes.
The big question.
Just a
couple minutes.
Yeah, you gotta understand how antsy you are. If I take like a minute, you think it's an hour.
Maybe it just seems that long.
It just seems that way because of how you are.
Aaron's laughing. Tom's saying Jenny drank too much, and she's laughing. And Tila said Tom kept his mouth shut. Y'all know he didn't.
Yeah, I did.
You know that's not going to happen.
Fuck you, bitches. Got all these women fucking ganging up on me.
We're not ganging up on you. We're just telling the truth. You just don't like it. Oscar says, oh, yeah, okay, I meant to tell you. The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. I was going to do that show on the next matinee. And then I looked it up. The only fucking place that you can stream this shit is on Sling. And to watch, like, normally you can watch some shit on Sling for free, like on Pluto. But you can only watch that movie if you bought the Epix add-on, which we don't have. So I might have to, like, order the Blu-ray or DVD, because I do actually want to do a review of that, and I want to see it again.
If you send her the DVD, we'll do it.
Or I'll get, if I can find it cheap, then I'll buy it. Because I do actually want to do it, and I want to see it again, but I was, like, mad because that was the only streaming service that offered it, and I'm like, fuck, man, we don't have that, and I can't afford another fucking streaming service. I already got Amazon and Hulu and Shudder and fucking Netflix and what the fuck else? We got a bunch of other shit, too. So, you know. But yeah, so this last one that I want to talk about, this was kind of like a book that came out sort of recently, and even though, okay, you know how the Black Dahlia thing, and then there was that dude that wrote the book about, oh, I think my dad killed the Black Dahlia, oh, and also, by the way, he was the Zodiac. I kind of feel like even though this is sort of the same situation where it was kind of like a guy that thinks his dad, I don't think he didn't say his dad was like one of the kidnappers, but his dad like knew the kidnappers. So it's kind of that, but I think he might be onto something. So this guy named Robert Zorin wrote this book called Cemetery John, the undiscovered mastermind of the Lindbergh kidnapping. Now he says that the person that Dr. Condon met up with in the cemetery, one of the kidnappers, was actually not Bruno Hauptmann, because if you remember what I said, Dr. Condon initially did not identify Hauptmann as the person that he had talked to in the cemetery. He wasn't willing to. He identified him at the trial, but he wasn't willing to identify him when he got arrested. So, yeah, and honestly, I have to say that like the sketch kind of looks like him, but kind of not. But what they found out later, so this guy, Robert Zorn, he's like, okay, I think that the person that Condon actually met with in the cemetery was this other German guy named John Knoll, who was an associate. He's not saying Bruno Hauptmann was innocent. He was saying they were working together, but this was like another associate. So he's saying this is like John Knoll, right? Now, he says, when I was a kid, my dad, whose name was Eugene, he says that we had a neighbor named John, and this neighbor took him to some amusement park in New Jersey in 1931, which is about 9 months before the kidnapping. And he says that the neighbor and two other guys were talking, and he overheard them, and they were speaking German, but he said he understood some of the words. Some of the words that he heard were Bruno Hauptmann, even though that wasn't the name that he usually went by. He usually went by his middle name, which is Richard, and Inglewood, which was where Lindbergh's parents lived. So there was that. So he remembered it, but like years later. So he said he thought that maybe these guys were like talking about the kidnapping or like planning it or whatever. So he was reading an article about the kidnapping in the 60s, and it triggered his memory, so he kind of like started looking back into it. So I will say that there's like other evidence too, but I saw a picture of John Knoll, the guy they were talking about, who they think was one of maybe Bruno Hauptmann's associates. That dude, you know how sometimes they show you like the police sketch and you're like, how the fuck did they even ever catch the guy like with that police sketch? Doesn't look anything like him. The police sketch and the picture of John Knoll look almost identical, I have to say. John Knoll looks exactly like that fucking police sketch. So I'm not saying that that means that he was involved, but it really does look a lot like him. Also, remember how I said like the handwriting analysis was kind of inconclusive over whether Bruno Hauptmann had written the notes or not. But John Knoll's handwriting actually looks a lot more like the handwriting on the notes than Hauptmann's did. And John Knoll was a German immigrant as well, so the same shit that was applied for Bruno Hauptmann would apply for him as well. They apparently, and I didn't find out about this until later, but apparently some of the ransom bills that were spent had traces of animal fat on them. John Knoll was a deli worker, so that would explain that.
T's recommended a movie called Nightwing.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
I haven't seen that in a long time. Yeah, let's like that. That's the Bat movie. I haven't seen that in a really long time.
Yeah,
I saw that on cable back in the old days.
Yeah, that might be on Amazon Prime. We'll check that out. Nightwing. I think I saw it. It just sounds familiar.
There were a lot of killer bat movies in the 70s. There was one that was on MST. It might have a different title, but I think... What the fuck did they call it? Like the MST version was called It Lives by Night or something like that. But I think it was also... Maybe was it called The Bat People? I don't know. And I know it had like 2 titles. That was also like a very, very 70s movie. But... Nightwing is another... Yeah, we should probably watch that, actually.
We'll check it out.
Because I haven't seen that since I was a kid.
That goes along with our 70s fucking...
Yeah, we've been on a 70s kick lately.
70s movies are good.
Well, there's something like... Well, like I said, there's something like really nostalgic about it. Even if they're not good, there's something like nostalgic about them.
They don't have to be good.
I kind of love all those nature run amok movies. I love all those disaster movies that came out in the 70s. It's just there's something really like comforting about them.
Got that 70s tone.
I don't know why. Plus, everyone had like horrible clothes.
It was a simpler time.
Haircuts and you know what I mean.
There was something kind of subversively sexy about them. Something kind of dirty about them. I liked them.
Well, it was almost kind of like watching low-key porn, I guess.
They were slutty.
Tom likes slutty things.
I love it.
But yeah. Oh, so there was another thing too. Well, let me he's just going off on fucking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like what? Like I said, why do I even bother? Why do I bother having a topic?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Why do I bother?
Go ahead.
There was just one more thing I wanted to say. Okay. There was another thing too about John Knoll. One thing that Condon said apparently in the initial police report when he said that he met up with the kidnapper. He said that the dude had something wrong with his thumb. Like his thumb was like deformed or he had some kind of weird growth on it. He didn't bring that up again as far as I'm aware. Now, one thing that John Knoll did have was he kind of had like some weird fucked up like fleshy growth like on his thumb, which you can kind of see. There's like a picture of him where he's like holding a kid and you can kind of see that his thumbs are kind of fucked up or they're like too big for his hands or some shit like that. So he kind of had, so a lot of people have pointed to this as like, oh, well, that definitively. And like I said, I will say, I'm not saying that John Knoll was involved. I'm not saying, but I do think that there is sufficient evidence to think. I don't think Bruno Hauptmann was innocent. So I'm not saying it was some big miscarriage of justice that he got electrocuted. I do think he was involved, but I think there were other people involved that never got caught. I definitely think there was somebody on the Lindbergh family staff that told the kidnappers the deal, like where the baby's room was and when the family was going to be there. So I definitely think that. Probably that Violet Sharp chick. And I think that Bruno Hauptmann had at least one other confederate, maybe two. Because this seemed more like an organized gang type of thing rather than just like a one dude doing the shit type of thing. And honestly, most of the evidence, and when I watched the PBS, the documentary that was on Nova, which came out a few years ago, they had, what's his face? John Douglas on there, that fucking FBI profiler. And at the end of the thing, he was pretty much thought the same thing. He's like, I don't know who the other people were, but he's like, I think it's very unlikely that this person, he's like, I'm not saying Bruno Hauptmann was innocent. I don't think he was. I think he did it. I think he was in on it. But he's like, I think that he had help. I think there was just one or two people and somebody that worked inside the house that probably helped them out or gave them information. And that's kind of where I'm at as well. I don't think he was innocent at all, but I definitely think that there were other people that were not prosecuted.
Yeah.
Either just because they didn't have enough evidence or they didn't bother or, they're like, oh, we got the guy, we killed him, it's over. So maybe they didn't really pursue it any further. Some of the shit that's crazy, I don't think that Charles Lindbergh necessarily had anything to do with doing the shit with his own kid. I think that's, again, possible, but it seems a little out there. But, the shit about Hauptmann having help, that's not out there.
Tina says she saw The Attic, too, said it was a weird freaking movie.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered it. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember liking it. Kind of had this older woman who just weird, you know what I mean? She's kind of cute, but she's kind of regressive. It's like she's a teenager. She's like a 50-year-old teenager. And then you find out this weird shit that happened to her and her dad's keeping her under his thumb. And she got stood up at the damn altar. And then you find out, oh man, I can't spoil it. It's called The Attic. It's real good. It's pretty
I need to watch that because I don't think
as it unfolds and shit. But like I said to you, I haven't seen it in a long time. So last time I saw it might have been 97, 98. So I don't know how I'd react to it now, but I liked it back then.
David June says, watching things from the 70s definitely makes you filthier.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
well, it should.
Aaron says, anyone watching Yellow Jackets, I'm hooked. Everybody's talking about that. I really should see
Yellow
it.
Jackets, huh?
Yeah. It's a series.
Okay.
Captain Blairdo says, did not see it, but an early 70s horror movie from Florida called Zat. It's an Ed Wood kind of movie. I've seen it. It was on Mystery Science Theater, except it was called Blood Waters of Dr. Z. And it was filmed in Florida, and it's terrible. It's basically about a schlumpy scientist with a comb-over who makes a potion to turn himself into a sea monster, kind of. Like a really, really low-budget creature from the Black Lagoon situation. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. But it's bad. But the MST episode is fun, though. But it's called Blood Waters of Dr. Z on there, but it's the same movie. So, yeah, it was shot in Florida. The funniest thing about it is that there's some scenes in there with an alligator where they're definitely trying to make you think that it's like a swamp or some shit, but it's clearly a swimming pool. I mean, clearly. They're not even really trying to hide it all that much, and it's just very, very funny. Mango says, have you seen the Nicolas Cage film Pig? I haven't, but
that's a good one.
I've been meaning to watch it because it's on Hulu.
Oh, it's on Hulu now?
I think it's on Hulu.
Okay, because the trailers look good.
Yeah.
It's on Hulu already?
Yeah.
Fuck.
I was gonna tell you because I was like, yeah, I just saw it when I was scrolling through. I'm pretty sure it's Hulu.
I'd almost rather pay a few bucks for it if we could.
Well, you can, but I pay for Hulu.
Okay.
That shit's $8 a month.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Well, it used to be $6.89, but it went up to $8.04.
I like to contribute to Nicolas Cage's career. All right, just so he continues to do some fucking crazy shit. Although the best thing that he's done recently is Mandy. I'm gonna say, Mandy Color Out of Space was pretty good too. I want to see that one again. We have it on Blu-ray.
God damn it, you're making me want to watch Wild at Heart again, the David Lynch movie with Nicolas Cage in it.
Yeah.
This here's a snakeskin
Caging
jacket.
the fuck out. And then the one where he was fighting all the damn animatronic fucking...
Willy's Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland was good also.
I think that's also on Hulu.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw that though. But yeah, I'm pretty sure
He's
Pig
a
is on Hulu.
kind of guy.
Yeah, because we've seen some shit that he was in that...
It's ridiculous. It's just like, oh.
Well,
be in
we
anything.
watched... they put on Shudder, they put one of his newer movies, which is... What was it called? Incident from a Ghostland or...
Yeah, which wasn't any good.
Which... I get what they were going for. I didn't love it, though.
It was basically a ripoff of Into the Badlands,
It was kind of...
which I didn't like that one.
No, I wasn't a big fan of that either. But it looked cool, but I got to a point where it's like, yeah, everything looks cool, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
It was that kind of situation. And it was like hard for me to sit through. Like I could understand like how some people would really dig it, but I just couldn't get into it. But Nicolas Cage was like the best part about it. That and like the whole aesthetic. What the fuck is that movie called?
Best Nicolas Cage movie in modern fucking memory is Mandy. It just is. That bitch worked.
Mandy was so fucking good.
Yeah, that bitch worked.
I loved that movie. Color Out of Space was good too, but I kind of feel like that was a little more of like a mixed reaction, which I get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that was a little...
It didn't work as well as Mandy, but it was all right.
It didn't, but it was
good.
still pretty
It was
good.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing with Color Out of Space, even though it was like fairly accurate to the story, but it was tonally, it was a little strange. I kind of feel like they were trying to do like the whole Lovecrafty thing, but then they were doing like a weird black comedy thing too, and I'm not really entirely sure that it gelled.
Yeah, T, she loves Vampire's Kiss. I haven't seen it in a long time. Yeah.
Not one time!
Yeah.
I was doing like some shit. So I was doing some Nicolas Cage shit. But yeah, Vampire's Kiss, you should probably see that.
Gotta see Pig.
He
That's gonna be good.
ate a cockroach in it.
Did he?
Yes.
Okay. It's still early. We could see Pig tonight.
Yeah, I kept meaning to tell you. I can't believe I forgot to tell you. But I was scrolling through Hulu the other day, and I was like, oh, they have Pig. We should totally watch that, because I've heard a lot about that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on Hulu.
Well, I tell you what, show's over. If you can get me out of here and I'll start cooking, we'll watch Pig.
Okay. What are you going to cook?
Well, I thought I'd make some of that crab salad.
Oh,
Crab
that's
with
right.
a K.
That's right. You mentioned that.
Yeah. I got to make sure that I have that bay seasoning, Old Bay.
Are you going to put Old Bay in it? You going to put any dill in there?
I can do that.
Put some dill.
You want Old Bay and dill or just dill?
Well, I don't know. Would that really go?
Usually it's Old Bay.
Yeah, that's true.
And mayonnaise and lemon. And then I was going to like serve that. I have a bunch of damn coleslaw mix that I have to get rid of. I was going to toss that like a salad.
Oh, okay.
And so we'll have like a crab salad. Maybe I'll toss that coleslaw mix in Italian dressing
Okay.
and have some crab salad on the side as a protein.
Either one. Like, I mean, I like
Not
crab.
like I serve it on toast.
I
on
like,
toast.
yeah, I like crab salad like on a sandwich.
I don't think I
to be
have any
honest.
pita. I think I'm out of pita.
We don't have any bread.
Just toast,
That's okay.
white toast. Would you would you rather have it on toast?
Yeah.
You rather have it on toast? All right.
Yeah.
I can do
Oh yeah, Jason Willie said Prisoners of the Ghostland. That's the movie we were talking about.
Yeah. It was.
It was all right. I didn't love it. I didn't
Yeah,
love it.
I couldn't-
I
I
wanted
couldn't
to
get
like
into
it more than, but I couldn't really get into it.
It was like too much like a made-for-TV movie.
Mango says, look up The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Nicolas Cage's new movie. It looks great.
Really, the unbearable weight of.
Oh my
massive
God,
talent?
that's an awesome. It
You got
says
so
like
much
the
talent you
unbearable.
can't
Is
take.
that like the unbearable lightness of being?
I know
Is that
all
what
about
they're?
it.
Is that what they're making fun of?
Here's the deal. Laugh if
That's a
y'all,
deep cut.
Laugh if y'all will. I can understand the pain of carrying around the burden of having so much talent. I understand it. I can feel
How
it.
do you understand that?
Because all the talent I'm fucking carrying.
I'm such an asshole.
I fucking understand it.
You think I would understand that?
I understand it totally.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know how you do, but okay. Mega says you could always have a bacon sandwich while watching Pig. See, that would like work out.
I go to Sam's and buy whole packs of ready-made bacon bits. Those bitches are good, man. I sprinkle them in omelets.
He puts bacon bits in
I
everything.
put bacon bits in those things.
Even places where bacon bits do not belong.
That's not true.
I'm just
Bacon
teasing.
belongs everywhere.
Bacon belongs everywhere.
Yeah, man. put
There's
them on top
another
of
shirt.
hamburgers.
Bacon belongs everywhere.
I'll sprinkle them on top of a fucking hamburger as the fucking cheese is melting. Hell yeah.
You know what belongs on a hamburger? A fried
Then
egg.
put guacamole on that bitch.
A fried egg belongs on a hamburger.
That's
what
it.
belongs on it. That's
They do that in Brazil.
what? Bacon
Put a fried
or
egg on a fucking hamburger, on a cheeseburger.
Well, people do it here too.
They got that shit from South America.
That's good.
They
I
need
mean,
to have
honestly,
that
more things need to have fried eggs on them.
Yeah.
I love fried eggs.
Yeah.
I used to just eat that for dinner when I was poor because fucking eggs are cheap, right? So you just fry up a couple eggs. That was like fucking.
Mango says that Nick Cage is playing himself in that film.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. All right, then I'm gonna let you shut it down, Jenny. I'm gonna go ahead
All right,
and
well,
get started
thank you.
something to eat.
So I actually did mostly get this case discussed, which
You
is
got it
good.
discussed. We talking about it's over, right?
That's- Yeah.
Yeah, you got it discussed.
All right. I just,
She's blaming me for getting in the way.
no,
of
I
her
wasn't.
show.
You're projecting again.
I just know how you are.
He's like
Nah,
wandering
yeah.
off.
All right,
Well,
y'all.
no, I was actually like talking to myself. Like, did I cover
Okay.
all of it? Okay, I think I covered everything I needed.
All right.
I needed.
All right, y'all. I'll see you guys fucking Friday.
He's gonna go make some
I'll
food.
see. No, I'll see y'all before Friday because we're gonna.
No,
have to-
Friday.
No, because we have to. Okay, tomorrow Thursday. Yeah, that's right. We got tomorrow off. And
Yeah.
I'll see y'all Friday.
I mean, tomorrow we might go to the movies.
Yeah,
Or
we need
do
to go
or
see-
something.
We need to go see Spider-Man.
He wants to go see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you guys for dropping by. Thanks you for all the really nice super chats. It was very generous of you this evening. We'll be back Friday night for our sidetrack show, in which Tom will probably be happy because he'll be able to talk about whatever. But yeah, we'll see you guys again Friday night. Have a good rest of your evening. Have a good day tomorrow. And we will see you guys on Friday night.